My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. Stalking. And this time not landing on Lemon Avenue, flying down the center where I'm walking in the center, Euclid Avenue, and doing so while they've got little kids stalking. This little 14, 15-year-old boy following, walking behind me, stalking, and doing so coming down, this is Euclid Avenue as well, and that's presence in the path, in other words, while the entity is stalking, flying over this parking lot. doing cartwheels in the middle of the street. Cartwheels are done in a relative position to where I'm located. This is why the people of the state, they are generously showing you how they're demons stalking with light, and that same evidence is going to be the ongoing evidence speaking to the conspiracy to murder together with the government that's stalking me directly, because they're going to prison. They're engaging in criminal summoning with the Ontario police while they're demons stalking with light, stalking in the path, stalking under the fake sun, in furtherance of that conspiracy that the government maintains with that pattern of conduct. And they're going to prison with that same government while they're engaged in criminal summoning, all iterations of it. It is currently 12:24 a.m. These demons are stalking with the airport that has no takeoffs, no landings along Euclid Avenue. And there's no takeoff or landing when you're flying. Remember this morning over the 280 North Lemon Apartments at the OVITT Family Community Library, and now they're flying over the ARCO gas station, not landing at at Lemon behind, while there's no airport property back there. But they're flying. You're paying attention to the inconsistent conduct because they're stalking. And they're doing so while I'm walking toward this venue in concert with the demons that are stalking all together. This is the entirety of that entity that's going to be prosecuted. Every immigrant's being deported. Every kidnapper of the Ontario police is going to prison. Mike LORENZ is going to be prosecuted as a terrorist leader. And so are the demons of the Ontario board and the Ontario executive team. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's currently 12:25 a.m. on November 16, 2025. This is P.O.C. I guess we're not landing on Lemon Avenue or taking off from Lemon Avenue. We're at a higher elevation coming from the same airport. Same two terminals. There's not a new airport over here. This is the entity that is stalking where I'm located, and their mental illness is not only exhibited by stalking in planes, but stalking in this manner while it's being documented, and they know it's being documented, and they're still stalking. This is over here at the bus stop with the people of the state who already tell you that they're demons stalking with light, sharing and stalking with the government. That's all engineer light, not headlights. Those are demons. And they're up at 12 o'clock in the morning stalking me outside. That's the mental illness. That's the conspiracy to murder. That's the gang violence that Mike LORENZ is being prosecuted for. P.O.C. It is currently 1:02 a.m. This is mental illness. This is surveillance. It's not traffic. And this is gang group conduct. This is psychopathic stalking. The Nephilim. P.O.C. Right, that's the entity that's stalking, flying right here. Doing so while the people of the state are stalking. Like I stated the other night, there's no landing behind the Ontario Town Square Amphitheater. There's no landing along Lemon Avenue. The entities engage in what is stalking as though there's landing behind the Sarah's Regis downtown Ontario luxury apartments, because it's all based on where I'm located, where they're engaged in psychopathic pacing and stalking in planes. And documentation is showing that inconsistent conduct when they're coming from what is the same airport, supposedly. You're landing at the same airport that doesn't move. You're landing and taking off from the same airport that doesn't move every day and doesn't move on an hourly basis. And this is an entity that is stalking using planes. That entire airport is being shut down. And that airport's engaged in what is a conspiracy to murder, while the people of the state are demons that are stalking with light. Those aren't headlights. That's impossible light activity. Those are demons. And so are the ones using planes following around. So are the ones that are using helicopters. The Ontario Police Department. Mike LORENZ is a demon, but he's also a defendant in a criminal case for conspiracy to murder, engage in terrorism with the domestic terrorists that are hovering behind Bethel Congregational Church, stalking in planes. P.O.C. This is a far cry from taking off on Holt Boulevard over the Candlewood Hotel, where Southwest and UPS and American Airlines are hovering. This is a far cry from 2500 Airport Drive. The airport is south of Holt Boulevard. This is a far cry from any landing or takeoff while you're doing cartwheels in planes. This is the P.O.C. This is a far cry from flying over the Ontario City Hall, north of the venue. And they're doing so while the entity is stalking with impossible light activity that's surrounding me. This is the stalking conning demons that are monitoring
are stalking together as an entity, a demonic entity, and the public entity that's going to be prosecuted for terrorism. And it's all occurring while terrorist organization, the Ontario Police Department, are monitoring, gang stalking, conspiring murder together. P.O.C. 6:22 a.m. This is mental illness. Stalking in planes is mentally ill behavior. These are the mentally ill that commit murder, not have plane crashes and accidents. They commit murder. These are demons monitoring your physical movement. They know who's in the sky space. They're engaged in what is crashing into buildings like what UPS did in Kentucky. These are the mentally ill demons that are stalking with light. Okay, they're engaged in what is murdering people, sacrificing them. And this gang stalking conduct by these commercial airlines are exposed as domestic enemies. They're a threat to this country. They're engaging in terrorism. P.O.C. It's 6:23 a.m. where they're stalking at the bus stop. This is P.O.C. And this is what the entity has continuously done since I've been remaining here. I just want to be clear, it's 9:41 a.m. And that's the entity that is stalking, engaging what is cartwheels while maintaining surveillance to the people of the state in alignment to me, not just here on Euclid Avenue, they're surrounding traffic is surveillance. And they're engaging in surveillance while they're aware the
is being documented, and that's relevant to their mental illness and the corrupt practices that are underway. Remember, when they're driving by at nightfall, the entity is creating multiple shadows, and that's supposed to be the guise of their headlights while they're committing a sex act together as a group, while they're stalking as a group, and they are demons. And they're engaging in the same pattern of conduct. The elements of monitoring remain underway. The entities engage in the pattern of conduct. The fake sun is present. It's subdued. It's over me. The same pattern of conduct is present. The entity is still stalking, and I've already documented the evidence of what is engineer light at the gray colored engineer light. In other words, 8 U.S. 796 is sharing in that criminal pattern of conduct, stalking with the airport. The airport's been engaged in targeting right here for hours. Okay, so capturing another video to make that evident. This is the entity that is going to be shut down as that airport. Obviously, the police department is being disbanded, and the people of the state are going to federal prison. This is evidence regarding their mental illness, their engagement in the conspiracy to murder, while they're gang stalking with the state, which I have evidence proving. Even Tracy Banks' engagement in the pattern of conduct, Woodside Senior Apartments, Economy, and the OVITT Family Community Library. The people of the state are going to federal prison. Getting a ticket in the midst of a traffic. Okay, Bethel Congregational Church, the same entity that's been stalking with the government, that's been maintaining ongoing stalking by the airport, and the Ontario Police Department is engaged in what is vagina monitoring in concert with the city of Ontario under the guise of being a church, under the guise of being a gang stalking immigrant subject to deportation while posing as a pastor. This is the entity, this is the Asian male, his wife, his children, sex offenders, engage in the pattern of conduct, and the entities engaged in this at Bethel Congregation in the bathroom were plain activity, which is never going to be heard, but for the entities stalking, as I've already captured on video, under the fake sun, which is outside of the entrance of the side entrance of that Bethel congregation, where it's in what is substantially the exact same position at what is the fake sunrise, while I am showing it on video and in images at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. This is an entity that's engaged in sexual violence as what is a threat, psychological torture. Sexual violence is what these terrorists are resorting to while they're keeping my evidence as demons and as those that are criminally monitoring on devices under surveillance. And this is the same fake church where the entity is stalking me by helicopter. This is the same fake church where the entity is stalking me by commercial planes. This is the same fake church where the entity is stalking with the terrorists, the Nephilim that are the people of the state, the enemies of this country that are engaged in murdering people, and that criminal system is underway inside of Bethel Congregational Church at 536 North Euclid Avenue with regard to vagina monitoring on behalf of that state. Okay, this is P.O.C. It's 12:11 p.m. That's an unlawful threat to my life and safety. It's a sex offense committed by a fake church. And the gang stalking immigrants are going to be deported out of every corner in this country. Yes?
Are you okay?
Yes. Is something wrong?
No. Are you okay?
Oh no, I'm fine. I didn't want to have a conversation and interrupt everyone. I kind of have an emergency.
Do you want some water?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Who is that? Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's bathroom monitoring. This is the entity that's engaged in that's present in the path outside of the door. While they are fully aware of everything that I'm doing, the entity is engaged in what is amplified audible activity with regard to my physical position, my physical status. So these are demons that are engaged in brutally perverted conduct, which is criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder. They also are sex offenders as they engage in what they engage in with the knowledge that they have as they engage in it. And this is all state action. So with my legs open wide apart, while inside of the private space where I've already shown the fake sun, I've already shown the entity gang stalking me under the fake moon over this church, the fake sun rise and set over this fake church, where the entity is targeting me, and doing so inside of the bathroom, inside of the building, where my ongoing public investigation is exposing the Nephilim who do congregate, and they call themselves a church. This is an entity that's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct where they are assuming that I'm in the bathroom, first of all. I could have gone anywhere. Pay attention to that. They're engaged in what is paying close attention to what my presence in the bathroom while I'm not, coincidentally, but pursuant to the P.O.C. of surveillance of the evidence, the fact that I'm documenting you gang stalking me. And it is the elements of monitoring. But while my legs are spread apart, while my vagina is exposed, that's the moment where the entities engage in what is amplified audible activity under all circumstances, where the fake sun, the fake moon, stalking by the airport, the fire department, the police department, the people of the state is underway. Those are violent sex offenders, and those under the age of majority are instrumental in that. Okay, the fake pastor's children are engaging in that sexual violence. There are terrorists in this country coming from across international lines to keep American citizens under surveillance and aiding in the United States government's pattern of conduct to murder American citizens, and they engage in gross sexual violence, targeting your genitalia. You know exactly what I'm doing in the bathroom, and you're a psychopath while you engage in that iteration of the P.O.C. It is 12:14 p.m. where I remember at the Starbucks where the demons of the Ontario Police, Rodriguez and J. Chu, are engaged in criminal summoning. As I'm documenting, if you'll be mindful, the fake sun is over me at that Starbucks at 111 North Vineyard Avenue at 12:41 p.m. It's over me at this venue at the same time as I documented 12:39 p.m. in that same position where that entity that is targeting me in the bathroom with knowledge of what's the status of my vagina when they engage in audible activity, crossing path, light activity, as they're all under the fake sun maintaining a fake church service where the Nephilim deceive themselves. All right, but they're not deceiving the federal government. The federal government is looking in and zoning in on all of them that are engaging in terrorism under the guise of Bethel Congregation Church. This is actually First Christian Church inside of the Bethel Congregation Church building. A Bethel Congregation Church where the lesbians that are co-pastoring that demonic congregation, which I documented this morning while the same airport is engaged in targeting me. That's the entity that's sharing in that criminal pattern of conduct. I'm documenting and exposing the malice of terrorists that are acting on behalf of the state, that needs the people of the state. The same sex offenders stalking with impossible light are just inside of a building, singing songs about Jesus Christ, whom they do not know, whom has declared destruction to them, the Nephilim, who have no disguise whatsoever. This is P.O.C. It's 12:15 p.m. regarding bathroom monitoring. All right, bathroom monitoring is underway by the same entity, gang stalking day and night at the same location. I just went inside of the facilitating venue. And the entities engage in sexual violence as well while they are molesting with impossible light. All they did was congregate inside of the venue. The venue where the entity is committing what is assault with a deadly weapon. That's the same Bethel Congregation Church, where the people of the state are utilizing this venue to engage in terrorism, sexual violence, ongoing stalking, criminal stalking, which it is acting in conformity to the state's pattern of conduct, who is stalking me in that sky space, in that specific environment is very specifically tailored to me. While the fake sun's over me at the entrance and the fake sun's over me at the side entrance, that's the entity that is stalking using planes and helicopters, where this fake man, like I've stated, license 9GVK182, these demons are pacing inside of the building that Satan deceptively calls a church. These are demons that are pacing outside of a bathroom, engaging in the satanic ritual. These demons are pacing while they take communion. All right, this is not anything that Christ Jesus is actually honored by or has anything to do with. These are demons. And it's the pattern of conduct while they do so with the state. License 9GVK182, like I stated. They are crossing path as I'm standing here walking out. This is lying in wait conduct. They all engaged in what is vagina monitoring on behalf of the terrorist, the sex offender, the mentally ill demon himself, Mike LORENZ. License plate 9CLF548. And as I've also shown, as the entity has also shown, Mike Lorenz has vagina monitors in position at the OVITT Family Community Library as well as vagina monitors in position at Economy Inn as well as vagina monitors in position at the Woodside Senior Apartments, including Tracy Banks, an incestuous sex offender, and sharing in that mental illness by the demons that are surrounded with evidence. Speaking to, again, mental illness because they're going to prison, they're going to be prosecuted. The Lord God is going to judge them as well. And this prosecution and this exposure is also an iteration of the Lord's judgment, but their judgment is very deep. Okay, 7ZQU979, Stalking with Light. Go ahead. 8FZT544, they're all engaged in bathroom monitoring at this side entrance where the entity maintains the fake sun, as I've already documented. And this is the entity that's engaged in sexual violence as in the shoes of the state, maintaining that surveillance and no church service, and the name of Jesus doesn't stop the demons from engaging in that ongoing psychopathic, sexually perverted, and mentally deranged criminal pattern of conduct. 6LEA800. This is P.O.C. Yeah. That entrance is adjacent to the Pentecostal Church of God International Movement. Yeah, the staircase. I'm going to go ahead and take some screenshots of that. But my storage is precluding taking camera images, so I'm taking screenshots, and I'm noting that because what I've also done historically, if I can't take a picture with the camera, then I take a screenshot, and it is equally relevant and probative and useful. That is where the time is probative with regard to the screenshots, as opposed ordinarily. I use screenshots as a means of analysis. This is a demon with her back to me that I'm taking a picture of at 1:06 p.m. This is the fake sun that is subdued over me while this demon is stalking in the path. This is mentally ill behavior while a demon is maintaining that noise. 8ZQF441 is monitoring, and that audible activity is relevant to that ongoing demonic synchronicity. These demons utilize communion. This is blasphemous conduct while they're engaging in the P.O.C. 7HVN734. This is criminal activity that's occurring inside of every venue where the demons live, where the demons work, where the demons, as the demons travel, as the demons congregate. There is no exception. And that's relevant to the federal government with regard to raids, prosecuting terrorism, and deportation raids. 8SLY220, 9VNL163. Satan has no shelter from this prosecution, and you're talking about raiding the gang stalkers, the terrorist leaders of the Ontario Police. You're talking about raiding the terrorist leaders of the Ontario International Airport. You're talking about raiding the people of the state. The entirety of that population is fully vulnerable based on the pattern of conduct that they are engaging in, and they have thereby forfeited you don't have any constitutional protection. And they're engaged in that malice, such as, oh, this is private property, and they can remove you if they want to, referring to last Sunday's Starbucks at 111 North Vineyard Avenue, where the fake sun remains over me en route to that Starbucks, while it's remaining over this venue, the Bethel congregation, at the same time while I'm documenting it over that roof. And by the way, no, you do not have a right to expel with the intent to obstruct justice regarding ongoing terrorism, regarding ongoing criminal surveillance, where it is in fact not private property, where the government's engaging in criminal surveillance. In addition, the entities engaged in, as I provided, what is a whole system whereby you can prosecute this malicious system that the government is maintaining, this public corruption. It's nothing other than a facilitating venue. That's why the supernatural is over my head at that venue, and you're going to be prosecuted with regard to all of those unintelligent all those unintelligent tactics regarding malice. And you're also going to be mentally assessed. Okay? J. Chu and Rodriguez exhibiting severe mental illness, psychopathic, antisocial, and delusional. Under the fake sun that's set there as well, and was not over the OVITT Family Community Library, like I had captured 24 hours later, using what is 3:18 p.m. in reference to that same agency gang stalking at that OVITT Family Community Library during what is 8:38 in the morning, where again, like you already know, the sun wouldn't be at the same entrance, but that's the entity's pattern of conduct, and they're going to be prosecuted prosecuted with regard to that malicious system. And the entities engaged in providing evidence of its impunity, stalking by an airport. Well, don't forget, because the federal courts aren't going to forget, and federal law is going to be mindful of the generous amount of evidence that you've given of stalking, and you're stalking with the demons inside a Bethel congregation, while you provide that evidence of ongoing targeting using the airline companies who are domestic terrorist leaders. These are enemies of this country. They murder American citizens. They're targeting in the same way that I am showing you, and they do so with impunity. You're going to apply that impunity. All I did was go inside of a facilitating venue, and this so-called doctor, all right, which is no impressive title, she's a demon. And she's engaged in what is maintaining nothing other than a business. These fake churches are nothing other than facilitating venues. And that same impunity is applying with regard to that pattern of conduct. And Bethel congregation is surrounded with evidence of targeting me. And it's not limited to business hours. That's why they're inside of that venue where that airport is targeting me. And they're doing so while those demons are right inside of that building. There's no separation here. There's no separation, and there will be no sun over the 111 North Vineyard Avenue, because this ongoing documentation is ceaseless, while demons who want to act as though you're a psychopath 1 second, and then you want to act like everybody forgot. No, everybody did not. No one forgot. That's, again, relevant to their mental illness. You're stalking with impunity one day? Oh, don't forget, because it's going to be in court what the demons inside of the venue is doing with that same government under a fake sun. They're going to prison. Okay, they're going to federal prison. The people of the state are going to prison, and the fake Christians inside of the churches are subject to federal prison. Okay, the gang stalking neighborhood, federal prison, while they engage in criminal summoning. And they're all showing with impunity while that government is demon possessed. That demon possession overrules what is logic, reason, rational actions, any sort of strategy, because they're blinded by their demon possession. And I've surrounded the demons, the intellectually impotent, with evidence. License 7ZYP099, and this entire entity is monitoring my vagina inside of the bathroom of Bethel Congregational Church. P.O.C. It is currently 1:11 p.m. And what does the pattern of conduct speak to? That it does not stop as I go across the street to the OVITT Family Community Library, where demons are congregating inside of a venue that is referred to as a family community. It's another deceptive misnomer. It's not a family community. It's a community of demons, but it is not family oriented. This is terrorism, and you're going from the deceptive misnomer of being a church having anything to do with Christ Jesus. But they're not even feigning to be Christ believers. Bethel Congregational Church is openly demonic. The entities engage in what is openly demonic behavior, even as they refer to Christ and state that or claim to be a believer, but you're demons that are pacing all around me under a fake sun over this building. So in both ways, you are looking into the substance. Satan is always wanting you to look at the surface of things. Satan is always assuming that you are literally a blatant fool. And that's because Satan is projecting Satan is a fool. Satan is a fool. And Satan is relying, but I want to be clear, Satan is a fool with regard to the ongoing spiritual attacks, if you will, and Satan already knows that what the end is. Satan is deceiving those who are acting in furtherance of that very foolish agenda, and they have summoned judgment on themselves as well. Okay, this is P.O.C. The people of the state are going to federal prison. That's the long and short. I stated years ago, and this is the case. The entities engaging in criminal monitoring. The entities engaging in criminal monitoring with the people of the state. The entity that's engaging in this day and night, night and day, day and night, night and day. This is relevant to every malicious iteration of that terrorist leader, Mike LORENZ, and the people of the state are going to federal prison. They're going to federal prison. They think, oh, no, I got a ticket. And it's not. You're going to federal prison. It's a malicious iteration and furtherance of murder, conspiracy to murder. The entities engaging in conduct in that same specific environment, so it's pursuant to the same criminal elements, and they ignorantly, as the inferior demons that they are, while they're engaging in what is a matter of public corruption, presuppose that because you have a ticket, because you're using police lights, fire truck lights, which is light activity by demons who are manifesting, that is rebutting or superseding, and it's not doing any of those. And these demons don't even know the definition of those terms. They're going to learn it when they experience the ramifications of criminal summoning. They're going to prison. They're going to federal prison. P.O.C. It's currently 1:14 p.m. at the OVITT Family Community Library, sounding amplified audible activity upon entrance, where surveillance is underway inside of this venue. P.O.C. Alrighty, the same sex offense, the ongoing same obsessive surveillance that you see illustrated by the airport and the people that stayed outside is underway while vagina monitoring is underway inside of the bathroom of the OVITT Family Community Library, maintaining surrounding presence upon entrance and exit. That's the mentally ill that are obsessed with my genitalia, doing so with the sex offenders that are gang stalking by employment at a facilitating venue. All right, and they're maintaining surveillance with the entire city. Okay, still understand that while the entity is engaged in that pattern of conduct, surrounding by walking past, crossing path at the entrance, that's the entity that's gang stalking while the amplified sound of the train, while they are engaging in surveillance. That's what they're doing in and out of the bathroom. An African American female with pigtails. She's on surveillance cameras, gang stalking upon my entrance, and doing so with regard to impunity. The entity that's engaged in what is conspiring your murder while you're documenting it is the entity that's subject to federal prison. And this is also sexual violence by the demons that committed kidnapping with that vagina monitoring agency. They are going to prison. Okay, just want to be clear. Vagina monitoring with Mike Lorenz, 7BWW568, 8PXL924, 7CHN722, 8XCJ966, 5WBE774, 5SSK313. This is 7HJT354. That's sexual violence on behalf of that stalking airport, on behalf of that stalking fire department, on behalf of that stalking police department, which is, again, just referring to it in a way in which, as we use words, so that you're understanding what it is I'm referring to. Criminal surveillance by a police department is a terrorist organization. It's not a police department, and that's why they're being disbanded as well. The entity's been engaged in what is years of the perpetual sex offense, which is sexual violence committed in furtherance of murder, and they're engaging in that and exhibiting severe mental illness. This is the entity that's doing so. OVITT Family Community Library employees are going to plead in court and not want to be subject to federal prison, and that's exactly where they're going. They're going to prison. This P.O.C., they're engaged in vagina monitoring with impunity shared by that government that exhibits impunity on a daily basis. It is 1:23 p.m. This is the entity engaged in what is monitoring in real time as well. That's a threat that OVITT Family Community Library poses, and you're also going to prison for that. It's 1:23 p.m. Hey Dylan, how's it going? And that's Securitas that's engaged in vagina monitoring, and the third party representing that company engaged in vagina monitoring while the entity enters the bathroom. Okay, that's the entity that's acting together. Stalking by planes, stalking by a terrorist organization, by agency, stalking amongst the demon-possessed that are stalked with a possible light. They all come inside of the building to maintain that ongoing surveillance, and it's mentally deranged behavior. It's 1:24 p.m. Alrighty, it is 1:32 p.m. where the demons are engaged in surveillance. This is anywhere that I'm walking inside of the venue, such as outside of the bathroom, they're surrounding. Walking toward the entrance, they are surrounding. Sitting at any computer station, they are surrounding. And they're doing so in the engineer light, which proves that they're pacing and that they're demons and that they're stalking. And it's already known that they are stalking on behalf of the state. And pursuant to that psychopathic pacing and engineer light in what is a facilitating venue of the gang stalker, the city of Ontario, which is identifying the state of California, that's conspiring murder in concert with the people of the state, where Alex, that committed kidnapping as an entity pursuant to criminal defamation, is present, engaging in that ongoing surveillance, threatening my life after having committed that very serious series of federal offenses in furtherance of murdering me. He's gang stalking with these demons, pacing in and out as I walk toward the water fountain at the entrance, and a demon is walking inside, not coincidentally, but pursuant to the pattern of conduct where the people of the state are engaging in stalking with that government, walking in while the entity is amplifying plane activity. You need to understand that's what they're doing when they're walking in and out of the bathroom. That is the entity, the public entity, that is also a demonic entity that's stalking you in the bathroom. Mike Lorenz is going to be subject to mental examinations for the criminal system, which is this gang stalking, but also for the absurdly sexually violent and demented means of surveillance, which the people of the state engage in on his behalf. And it includes Alex, that's gang stalking. He's sitting back here at the circulation desk area where the computers are, and putting up a sign stating, "Oh, we'll be back momentarily," is speaking to what is criminal presence in the path inside of the venue. He's the one that's entering in their business records. It's all going to prosecute them. He's the one accessing this computer. He is at work today, scheduled. He's engaged in criminal activity. He's already committed a kidnapping with that agency, which is gang stalking while the airport sounds amplified audible activity under a subdued fake sun, where it's already documented rising and setting, and where this agency is engaged in targeting me, including my vagina in the bathroom, where demons, the Nephilim, are obsessed with my vagina. In fact, they're inside of the library with regard to stalking me. Stalking, making sure they're maintaining surveillance, stalking in the path upon my entrance and exit of the bathroom, stalking in the path with regard to every location where I'm at inside of that library. And the entity has proven to be doing so. That's why I can show you the fake sun at the entrance, and I can show you the fake sun that's still there at the entrance 8 hours later. I can show you the fake sun that's at the entrance at 10 o'clock, and I can show you the fake sun that's at the back portion over the College of Laverne, as I'm facing College of Laverne, University of Law, the City Hall end, where that fake sun is then all of a sudden moving to the opposite end, and the two are not happening at the same time. If it's at the back of this extraordinarily large library, similarly documented at Fontana Lewis Library, by the way, then it's not going to be seen over the entrance, and that's not the sun, that's the entity that the entity is maintaining over both ends of that library. Do you know where Alex is?
I don't. Might be on break.
Oh.
Or
Are you able to access the rooms in order to let me back in?
no.
No? Oh, okay.
Oh,
You're just getting something.
yeah, but also I'm just security, so I don't have access to anything here.
Okay.
I just need one of these rules. Smells like wet dog over here.
That's what I noticed as well. Maybe somebody's clothes are wet. Can they at the front desk let me back into the
No. They're
No?
not trained for anything over here. It's all through this one.
Oh, okay.
It might just be in the bathroom, so.
Oh, okay.
Next one.
Alrighty. It's 1:38 p.m. No problem. Oh, this is all P.O.C, by the way. But the entity tracking my steps is proven through the fake sun documentation. And this is the entity that shows every moment how much of an obsessed psychopathic stalker invested in my murder. And you're going to be mindful of that when the people of the state are in court. They're going to prison for being co-conspirators of murder, gang stalking with the state, and a highly unintelligent system that I have broken down for the world to understand, exposing Satan and the Nephilim. It's 1:38 p.m. This is P.O.C. 1:40 p.m. Stalking with noise. Hi, would you mind letting me back in, please, Alex? Okay. And the security guard, Dylan, is gang stalking with the library. This is all P.O.C and comic. They're all in engineer light. They're all use of communication devices. They're all sitting here looking at DVDs and engineer light. This is psychopathic conduct that you're not supposed to know is underway. This is stalking. Thanks, Alex. 3:30, right? Yes. Okay, got it. Alrighty, it's 1:41 p.m. Dylan is engaged in gang stalking, just so that you're understanding the malice. He comes to the desk to ostensibly engage in something related to what is his role, giving out what is rules of conduct while they're engaged in federal stalking and furtherance of murder at this venue, and also obstruction of justice while they violate their own rules, breaking the law, which is explicitly stated in their so-called rules of conduct that do not trump and shall not supersede Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2, and all of that within the I.I.S. federal legislation, the federal RICO case that they are inundated with regard to the facts to prosecute them. He's engaging in that, going in, looking for a pen, pulling out this paper where he's going to go hand it some. He's crossing path. They're all engaged in pacing. Remember, the entity that's stalking me at the bus stop with impossible light, the entity that's stalking me by plane and helicopter in that engineered light, the entity that keeps a whole fake environment, such as, and the ability to recognize that it's fake is because the entity is keeping a fake moon over me at night, and the entity is keeping a fake sun over me during the day and all day. And the entity is engaging in that while I'm also not going anywhere. I'm essentially remaining in the same city at pretty much the same venues. And you're looking at what is this day-to-day maintenance of a fake sun and a fake moon at nightfall, where blatant and very clear stalking and harassment and targeting by the city of Ontario is documented. They're pacing. These are demons who are pacing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. These are demons. This is Satan that is using vessels, people, and they're demon possessed. And these are serial killers. This is the government that's engaged in state-sponsored violence, gang violence, in furtherance of murder. And it's happening at fake churches. That's what you are by definition, where the P.O.C. is underway. It's happening at the venue such as what the OVITT Family Community Library is representative of, a malicious pattern of conduct amongst the people of the state that are coming in, helping the demons that are employed by the city of Ontario at this OVITT Family Community Library, where Satan is hiding behind such titles. And you can still see Satan very clearly. While these are demons that are pacing, that's why they have multiple shadows, magnified size shadows. That's why entrance and exit of the venue is inclusive of amplified train activity, stalking by that airport and stalking by that police department and stalking by that fire department. That's why that coexists. And they are encompassed within that pattern of conduct while they're still engaging in what is stalking. Stalking that the federal court is going to match with regard to that spirit of impunity that you have. That's going to be noted under the law when you're prosecuted. And the same disdain you have for the rights, the human rights of another, it's at the forefront of your criminal prosecution, notable whether with regard to how long you're going behind bars and the ways in which the world needs to know about who you are and what it is that you've committed as a corrupt government body. That includes the demon-possessed people of the state that are exposed as domestic enemies in this country, aiding and instrumental, the integral aspect with regard to tearing this country apart. It's 1:45 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, vagina monitoring while the entity is in position outside of the bathroom. This is vagina monitoring on behalf of Mike LORENZ. Ongoing surveillance with regard to crossing a path, gang stalking, and centering it around what is the bathroom. This is P.O.C. at 2:55 p.m. And that is light activity while the demons are in position where sex offenders of OVITT have placed chairs regarding sexual violence, surveillance in the bathroom for the convenience of the sex offenders, the vagina monitoring acting as agents of Mike LORENZ. Mike LORENZ that's obsessed with my vagina and every demon affiliated with that agency that is being disbanded for vagina monitoring. Just want you to hear that's audible activity that's analogous to the entity amplifying train activity, amplifying plane activity, amplifying helicopter activity. Everything is deliberate with regard to the mental illness by the demons that maintain a whole cartoon environment, including while they're monitoring your vagina, which the United States, you American citizens under surveillance, you need to know that. You're surrounded by sex offenders. That's noise in the engineer light. And the entity is doing so while they are monitoring the evidence. I want to be clear, sex offenders like Alex, they are going to prison. And this is the entity that's engaged in sexual violence while then they commit kidnapping. There's no elevator that you're going to hear. There's no air dryer that's going to pierce through the walls in this bathroom from the male or the employee restroom. There is no footsteps, for example, or helicopter activity that's going to sound. And there is also no piping. This is the entity that's amplifying noise as the entity has already demonstrated it's doing, such as LAPD targeting me as demons with helicopter activity while they are flying over the mountains, and I am inside of my bedroom on the opposite side of my apartment, where you're aware the entity is also rising and setting the fake sun, maintaining impossible light activity inside of my apartment, maintaining things like a photo shoot light activity on my ceiling where I'm documenting terrorism. Those are the demons that are engaged in bathroom monitoring right now. And in the way in which I'm documenting right now, this is the impunity with which terrorists are going to prison. And no one is going to cry for them. No one's going to care. This is ongoing surveillance inside and outside, and this is mental illness while the entity is engaging in that. And the entity is doing so on behalf of the sex offender, Mike Lorenz, who is severely mentally ill. And the ongoing stalking by helicopter by that agency, the ongoing malicious audible activity by that agency, such as J. Chu and Rodriguez, who are under a fake sun. Those are the mentally ill that eat their own feces, that engage in atrocious sex acts, such as vagina monitoring in the bathroom, with regard to what is even the fake maintenance of what is a whole environment to monitor that person. And in fact, their mental illness is such that psychopathic sex offenders commit more sex acts violating that person while that person is documenting it. This is relevant to the mental illness shared by the Nephilim who are engaged in vagina monitoring. This is P.O.C. It's 2:58 p.m. The entity is engaged in that pattern of conduct as a venue. That is, the airport is present, gang stalking by agency. The police department is present, gang stalking by agency. The fire department is present, gang stalking by agency, while psychopaths and their mental illness is exhibited by the ongoing maintenance of impossible light, impossible audible activity, and the entities engaged in that. And this is also, I stated this before with regard to the breadth of my documentation. Everything that the entity does with regard to monitoring is that which can be replicated in court. The fact that there is no noise that's going to sound inside of the bathroom, the fact that there is no earthquake that's going to occur when you're driving on the street and you're on at the bus stop, the fact that the toilets are not actually engaged in what is noise creation through the tile walls and the tile floors, the fact that artificial lights do not cause magnification of shadows in front, then vacillating behind you and repeatedly pacing in front of you. This is all that which is to be replicated in court, in addition to the fact that the airport is engaging what is deviating from the terminals that remain at the same address, the airport that doesn't move, in the same way that that fake sun doesn't move while it's over me, while this is underway, which is the sex offense, the perpetual sex offense, which is committed in furtherance of murder. Okay, the entity is engaged in that conspiracy to murder with impunity, and no, the entity that's gang stalking, that's engaged in kidnapping, no one is going to cry for any sex offending domestic terrorists that's engaged in this level of sexual violence for the government. The entity, and like I stated, this is the same impunity. It's going to be relevant with regard to how the federal courts are going to prosecute terrorists in this country. My evidence is showing not only the proof of the pattern of conduct, but the proof whereby the entity is fully invested until their last breath on the ongoing criminal pattern of conduct, which is always committed and only committed in furtherance of murder. That same impunity is relevant to sentencing, to enhancement of federal charges, with regard to the ways in which that city, that state is going to be prosecuted civilly and criminally. It's 3 p.m. on the dot. P.O.C. This is relevant to the obsession with my vagina that, for example, J. Chu and Rodriguez and Starbucks and the employees at the OVITT Family Community Library and all the sex offenders under the roof of this venue who are engaged in surrounding while they're engaged in bathroom monitoring, which is an egregious sex offense in furtherance of that murder committed by the state. P.O.C. It is 3:01 p.m. I just want to be clear, it's not only that, it's the frequency, the ongoing incessant nature of it. It's analogous to the plane activity. You document them stalking. That's already proven that you're stalking. The entity will engage, it's psychopathic, they'll engage in more and more and more and more and more in plane activity. That's the mental illness. These are the feces eaters. They're going to be both diagnosed, mental examinations, and prison. This is no ordinary sex offense. This is P.O.C. Cape Cod exit. There's no takeoffs over the bus stop adjacent while the entity is stalking in the path, where the entity is clearly stalking as an airport, and that's also what they're doing in the bathrooms, maintaining surveillance on behalf of this government in and around the bathrooms with what is the OVITT Family Community Library. A sex offender, okay, and engaged in sexual violence with the people of the state. The demon-possessed sex offenders that are engaged in the conspiracy to commit murder while the government maintains surveillance through them and with them. Okay, Dylan and the OVITT Family Community Library employees are surrounding in the path. And I want to be clear, the entity that is stalking upon exit, this is what the City of Ontario is maintaining surveillance, doing so while they're stalking with light. 7CGA883 is a state actor, a third party monitoring my vagina, and the entity is engaging in what is audible activity, stalking, crossing path, pursuant to a statewide P.O.C. These are the demons stalking with impossible light, while the entity is maintaining presence with the sex offenders, the Ontario police, who are being disbanded for that criminal pattern of conduct. This is psychopathic pacing while they keep my vagina under surveillance through the sex offenders identifying themselves as Securitas, a security guard. They're going to prison. Okay? Vagina monitoring is that which precedes death, murder, by an entity that is stalking you in bathrooms. This is absurdly mentally ill conduct, which you are looking at the evidence of while they stalk with impossible light. So they're standing at the entrance gang stalking now. Okay? This is an entity. The entity stalking as you're exiting. Remember, the airport is what is south of Hope Boulevard. There's no airport taking off. There's no terminal east of the Ontario City Hall. There's no also airport where they go more north up Euclid Avenue, stalking while I'm at F Street in Euclid. There's also no sun that would be rising and setting at C Street and the OVITT Family Community Library intersection, which is also on the record. Okay? This is the impunity that's with which Mike Lorenz is going to be prosecuted. He's going to prison while the entity is engaging in what is stalking by the airport, stalking by the people of the state, stalking by the kidnappers, the Nephilim themselves, dressing up to fool the world like they're police officers. Oh, no, they're not. They're feces-eating, light-slinging gargoyles, engaging in that same obsession with my vagina. And that's why they're going to prison for kidnapping. Okay? That's no ordinary sex offense, and the entity proves it as I exit. And this is the entity that is mentally ill. There is no retaliation while you are a psychopath enraged by my evidence and my investigation, and all you're doing is going to prison for it. That's the mentally ill conduct of the proven through the P.O.C. It's 4:04 p.m. This is OVITT Family Community Library. 4:21 p.m. at OVITT, where the entity is engaged in what is moving south, as I am self at the library, where the disqualification of Paul Leon, as you hear that plain activity, stalking, that's the evidence of his disqualification, his being unseated as a terrorist. In fact, as I document and take that screenshot with reference to everything that the pattern of conduct proves, and with regard to everything that's being simultaneously prosecuted while gang violence is being legislated over and also federally prosecuted by the federal government, the entities engage in that surveillance in a very foolish manner. In fact, they replicate what is the direct evidence of stalking, such as no takeoffs from the airport at 2500, 2900 Airport Road at this elevation, at that volume. Also under what is a fake sun that remains, and at night a fake moon, where the demons are the people of the state flinging light and they're gang stalking with that airport that has no property north of Hope Boulevard. You are under no circumstances hovering over the office that Paul Leon is going to have no association with. And in fact, his corrupt government practices the entire time he's been in office is proven by virtue of an airport stalking me in conformity to a pattern of conduct, and the entities engaged in that while his criminal activity is simultaneously being exposed while state surveillance by a gang stalking airport is being captured. This is relevant to Paul Leon's engagement in the criminal conspiracy to commit murder. Just want to be clear, that's the entity acting as one, engaging in what is, like upon my exit of the OVITT Family Community Library, criminal activity with the intent to obstruct justice, not coincidentally when I'm publishing evidence about it, and then you're dumb enough to continuously engage in it while it's being published on the internet and nobody is doubting or hallucinating or imagining it. The entity is actually the mentally ill one, and that mental illness is relevant to also why Paul Leon is being removed from office. It's 4:23 p.m. where the entity is engaged in the same stalking as I'm here yesterday during the 9 a.m. hour before, I'm here actually well before that, and the entity is maintaining ongoing psychopathic pacing over this venue. The entity maintains psychopathic pacing over Euclid Avenue, which is north of OVITT Family Community Library, where I've also documented the fake sun and the fake sunrise and set, literally at that bus stop, at that address, at BETHEL congregation. And that's where the entity maintained planned activity. So it's going to stalk me and go back north up the street to maintain planned activity that's never occurring upon what are the very clear-cut operations where takeoffs from the airport south of Hope Boulevard is maintained with regard to takeoffs that None of the airlines are maintaining hovering over Ontario Town Square, landing behind the Ontario Town Square Amphitheater, hovering upon what is Lemon Avenue, taking off above what is ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, flying at a different elevation, heightened in elevation, adjacent to me at the Truth and Love Ministries, while the entity's stalking, while I'm at 537 North Euclid Avenue, while the entity's doing things such as stalking me at South Euclid Avenue, while I'm at the People of the State of Facilitating venue, and on a random corner, in the specific environment, those demons are hovering by flying over the top of my head, flying over my hotel rooms in the city of Ontario, where they're engaging what is stalking me here. This is Paul Leon's specific threat to me, while Paul Leon is being documented. And those are the breaks with regard to criminal activity, which is in furtherance of a conspiracy to murder. This is group conduct, and the group's being prosecuted. The gang stalking mayor is being removed from office, and the gang stalking mayor is going to be subject to a federal prosecution for specifically targeting me, while I've been maintaining a body of evidence exposing him, and that gang stalking police, that gang stalking fire department, that gang stalking airport has been engaged in what is an ongoing unlawful threat, including what you just listened to right now. This is the entity that's literally prosecuting itself. In addition to the domestic enemies, the serial killers, the demons, the people of the state, who have no legitimacy whatsoever. Their role is to be stalkers and light slingers. And these are all demons that are eating their own feces, and they don't want you to know that they're outright bat poo crazy, while my evidence lets you know that. This is P.O.C. It's 4:25 p.m. That's criminal monitoring with the intent to obstruct justice. P.O.C. 4:33 p.m. The Ontario Airport Board and the Ontario Executive Team. P.O.C. This is psychopathic behavior. They're exhibiting mental illness. They're already proven to be targeting and furtherance of murder. This is psychopathic and OVIT. They're demons that are still inside of the library creating light activity. They're going to prison for the impunity with which they've conspired my murder, and they're still gang stalking, speaking to what is a disregard, and there's going to be no plea made with regard to avoiding prison. They're going to prison under all circumstances. It's 4:34 p.m. This is P.O.C. 4:40 p.m. Psychopathic pacing. That is no takeoff, and it's clearly distinct from hunkering behind the amphitheater of the Ontario Town Square. And it's also clearly distinct while there are also no takeoffs from the airport that would result in what is flying through the center of Euclid Avenue, where the gang stalking lesbian priest or pastor at the Bethel congregation is gang stalking me, okay? While the entity is stalking outside while I'm at the bus stop. That's the entity that's gang stalking through those. And 536 North Euclid Avenue is a far cry from hovering over the 280 North Lemon Apartments. That's engaged in what is migrating north as I am north, and that airport is engaged in psychopathic pacing. This psychopathic behavior is relevant to what is murder that you all have witnessed in Kentucky by the gang stalker U.S.C. This is mental illness that I am revealing to you while they are engaging in the demonic behavior, which is criminal activity. That mental illness is what is behind sacrifice, murder, under the guise of what is an accident by a company, presumed to be accidentally engaging in a collision, investigating what happened. What happened is that psychopaths, demons, are engaging in terrorism, and they're exhibiting mental illness in the way in which they are gang stalking me. This is psychopathic pacing and engineer light. No airport, no scheduled takeoffs from that airport is going to support what is ongoing evidence of mental illness and criminal monitoring and furtherance of murder. 4:42 p.m. P.O.C. All right, psychopathic pacing while the entity is again exhibiting mental illness while the evidence is being published on YouTube. You can literally look at the videos. The entity stalking flying through the center of the street, and I'm reminding you about the entity stalking as though they're landing at the ARCO gas station. The entity sounds plain activity. Those are demons that are mentally ill. And they're also stalking here, which is, again, when you look at the pattern that is recognized in the aggregate, when we all together look back at what they did, look back at where the sun was rising, look back at what happened 8 hours earlier, we can all see that illusion.
that nobody's imagining. And the mentally ill, they're getting locked up. They're going to prison and they're being deported. These light-seeing gargoyles are not welcome in this country. And the light-seeing gargoyles that are stalking in planes are no longer going to be able to covertly terrorize American citizens and then condition your mind to look at it and frame it as an accident when it is deliberate, intentional, malicious conduct by psychopaths. P.O.C. It's 4:53 p.m. Triggered again by another damning video that I'm referring to. 4:57 p.m. And this is video evidence of Tracy Banks and Woodside Senior Apartments, and nobody's forgotten in the federal court. The federal judge is not going to be forgetful either, because those demons, as I documented, from November 2024 until May of 2025, maintained surveillance at that apartment complex. And they're going to prison for the kidnapping that they committed, for the ongoing surveillance of my vagina in that apartment, where that fake sun, to prove that, was rising and setting, specifically over the sidewalk where Tracy Banks' apartment, Unit 51, where that agency that's been gang stalking, as I've been documenting, has been engaging in gang stalking, where they committed kidnapping at Woodside Senior Apartments on May 29, 2025. I just want to let you, Mike LORENZ is going to prison. And so are the demons in units 48 through 64. And the entity is stalking as that airport. And as I'm referring to that literally as I look it up in order to attach it to the video that I'm going to publish regarding this airport, stalking where no flights are hovering over Euclid Avenue, and there are no flights that will be scheduled at that time where you're hovering over Euclid Avenue, no takeoff, no landing. And it's also inconsistent while they're landing one day, one moment, and then they're heightened in elevation as though you are flying at a heightened elevation. The inconsistency, in other words, with regards to what's supposed to be the same address, same airport, same terminals, but you've got hunkering down like you're landing, UPS, and then you've got heightened elevation as though you are engaged in some sort of flight where none of them are coming from the airport south of Hope Boulevard, Southwest Airlines. This is the entity that's documented stalking, and they're stalking while they're looking at the damning evidence exposing them. Ongoing monitoring, 459, psychopathic pacing, P.O.C. Hovering over, again, the 280 North Limit Apartments. This is the mental illness that's established, and this is the entity that's engaging in criminal activity, which Mike LORENZ is going to prison for. And so is every kidnapper. But remember, the entity, the Ontario International Airport is being shut down. It's a threat to national security. The entity is engaged in what's relevant is this is monitoring with the intent to obstruct justice. Very much triggered by evidence, a whole body of evidence, extending years, by the way, not just the damning evidence in 2024, 2025. These demons have been stalking as an airport, which is going to be irreconcilable. They're not going to be able to make any sense of it. And that's with regard to the demons that are actually still breathing, okay? Because these demons practice what is failed witchcraft that's returning right back to them. Those demons have no authority. They are being exposed in real time, including while I prosecute them under the law with tangible evidence, which is also proving that they're demons monitoring spirits. Now, that's only something that Christ Jesus himself can do. It's 5 p.m. The entity's engaging in this with the intent to obstruct justice while they're monitoring evidence. P.O.C. Alrighty, the entity engaged in the failed tactics, doing the same thing by stalking with helicopters. They're all going to be mentally assessed and federally prosecuted. Ongoing mentally ill behavior, stalking in planes, and also the psychopathic pacing when you're understanding what the demon-possessed are doing in the engineer light as a population, and they're engaged in demented behavior, they're pacing, okay? POC, it's 5:02 p.m. All right, the mentally ill people of the state, stalking with that entity, psychopathic pacing while they are targeting while I'm in the side hallway of the OVITT Family Community Library. And this is proven by the documentation of the entity keeping the fake sun over me on the side of this library. That's historic documentation that I also have as a 2025 as well. But that's the proof that the entity is stalking with impossible light. The fake sun is evidence of stalking with impossible light. And it's also evidence of demons that are stalking in furtherance of murder. And that's what they're doing with the airport that's engaged in blatant stalking. These demons are suicidal. They're going into asylums throughout the country. They're going to be deported out of this country. They're going to federal prison throughout this country. They're being locked up to relieve and protect the public. The entity that is stalking with light is doing so in furtherance of murder. The entity that's engaged in genitalia monitoring in bathrooms is committing a sex offense as an entity in furtherance of murder. The entity that's stalking as an airport is engaging in that radical, spectacular, extreme, and demented means of stalking and surveillance in furtherance of murder. It's 5:06 p.m. We're the people of the state, proven through evidence while they have targeted in order to murder me, and they are also the Nephilim who are going to be prosecuted. This is P.O.C. That's concerted conduct with the gang stalking airport, which is the city of Ontario. Okay, 5:09 p.m. The demon possessed are engaged in ongoing monitoring. Monitoring is criminal activity in furtherance of the conspiracy by a government to murder. So the entity that's stalking with light is engaging in that. And you're doing so on behalf of the state. This is a very malicious and maniacal conspiracy to murder. And this is relevant because the people of the state have already dealt with themselves with regard to their heavily documented targeting tactics as mentally ill. Demons that are light slingers, that are stalking under things like a fake sun, where they are ripe for mental assessment. And the entities engaged in criminal summoning, this is all relevant to what is the airport stalking, the fire department stalking, the police stalking. They do so in reliance on the people of the state, the gang stalking population. And they're going to prison for every iteration of criminal summoning. That includes California Highway Patrol, where I'm documenting criminal summoning. That includes every gang stalking ambulance engaging in criminal summoning with the people of the state. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department that are gang stalking outside of what is Ontario. I documented them engaging in criminal summoning in Hesperia, for example. That's federal prison. I didn't document that for no reason, and these demons are going to prison. They're engaged in this. You're talking about Azusa Police criminal summoning, the fake sun set. Where is that going to be in alignment to me where Mickey's walking on the evidence that's putting her away? Engaged in criminal summoning under the fake sun that's still at that library at 8:38 in the morning. She's going to prison while these demons are demonstrating their mental illness and the evidence which is putting them in prison, where the gang stalking police, the gang stalking government is acting in concert and reliance upon the entity. This is public corruption for which you go to federal prison. Gang stalking with law enforcement that's engaged in actually surveillance. Okay, I've documented this on the roads and the highways. I've documented this by the state police. I documented this by the state police in Nevada. I documented this by the entity that's engaged in what is criminal surveillance and wanting you to be deceived and wanting to also simultaneously exercise due process rights and the authority of legitimate officers that are not demons, that are not engaging in surveillance. They're delusional. And you know that because they're light-slinging, feces-eating gang stalkers. That's how you know that they're delusional. You are not engaged in criminal surveillance and being treated as anything other than what is a terrorist that doesn't have any rights with regard to exercising due process of a police officer engaged in the execution of your duties. No, you are not Satan. And you're going to prison, and so are the people of the state engaging in targeting me through traffic stops, through what is the entity picking up demons in ambulances, engaging in what is that P.O.C. that's called malice, and they're going to prison. That's what's relevant behind these demons stalking with impossible light. While they're so mentally ill, they engage in that which is to their own demise. 5:12 p.m. P.O.C. 5:25 p.m. All right, I did capture video of the entity engaging in stalking by planes, and it is equally stalking when, first of all, you are deviating miles from the airport to then create what is this plane activity. When you would have taken off, you're not going to hear it. Second of all, it's happening where the fake sun rises and sets. Third of all, it's happening while I'm showing you the impossible light activity. Fourth of all, it's happening not coincidentally while I'm publishing damning evidence about this airport. That's where you're also going to recognize a pattern of conduct in my documentation regarding this pattern of conduct. It is proof of surveillance, and the entity is also doing so while it's triggered, like you heard me stating. The evidence of the Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport, the City of Ontario, gang stalking me in my hotel room where they're committing a sex offense, keeping my vagina under surveillance, doing so using planes and helicopters, where no airport takeoffs include cartwheels like they are here, flying miles away from the airport to then engage in psychopathic conduct, then hovering back down. The entity's engaged in that while assuming nobody was ever going to investigate that. Not only that, the entity's doing it while they're hovering over my hotel room. That's also having nothing to do with the 2500, 2900 Airport Drive airport, the two terminals, where there's no takeoff that would include flying south over my hotel room where it's amplified plane activity. You're targeting, and the audible activity is the evidence of it. You're also targeting because Economy and has a documented sunrise and sunset. It's P.O.C. It's 5:29 p.m. This is the entity exhibiting mental illness.
This is deranged. This is the entity that is stalking. This is a plane trying to avert being captured. You can hear the plane activity. I don't have to even capture it. There's no plane activity that will be sounding over Tracy Banks' apartment as well. There are no takeoffs that will be occurring while the airport is south of Hope Boulevard. There are no takeoffs that include cartwheels. This is what an entity is doing after I capture them stalking, making a beeline, and then the next plane engages in what is a cartwheel when it's equally stalking, and that is also evidence of what are you doing? Is this funsies? This is not airport, a legitimate airport behavior. This is while the entity is monitoring the evidence that it's very much triggered by, because I have the evidence of the City of Ontario targeting at all manner of venues. That's the entity that's stalking with these demons who are targeting with impossible light. And this is the evidence also of what is impossible light. Here's my shadow right here where the airport is stalking. And here's my shadow on the wall over here. Let me zoom in. So you can see impossible light activity where nothing other than surveillance is underway. And those who are engaging in what is harassment are engaging in surveillance. That includes surveillance by the airport. That includes surveillance by the OVITT Family Community Library. That includes surveillance by the domestic terrorists, the enemies of this country, the Ontario Airport Board and the Ontario Executive Team. Where that pot of terrorists, any of them that are immigrants, are being deported. And the entity is going to be prosecuted for kidnapping with that Ontario Police Department who share that criminal pattern of conduct, including at Economy. And that's the video that I'm associating with the gang stalking at the bus stop this morning, where the demons are triggered and they engage in more damning criminal activity. That's relevant, by the way, with regard to the entity's mental illness. It's psychopathic, and so they engage in what is deranged conduct while they're merely frustrated, and it doesn't change the fate of prison and asylums. P.O.C. It's 5:28 p.m.
All right, this is the ongoing confession to mental illness. That's the same for the demon representing the entity, the people of the state that are stalking. Remember, they're standing in engineer light. The entity is engaged in that. Amplified audible activity is evidence of mental illness. This engineer light that they're all maliciously keeping us under surveillance in, these are demons, and it's evidence of their mental illness. The entity is engaged in what is stalking in a plane in the first place. That's evidence, direct evidence of mental illness. Just want to be clear, that's how you're analyzing what are demons that are engaging in criminal conduct that they know that they are caught dead in the middle of, okay? Their mental illness is a national security concern. It's a threat to the public, okay? That amplified plane activity is an act of aggression and hostility while you're engaging in that which the feds know and everybody else knows what you're doing. And you also know, while you're keeping my evidence under surveillance, that you are incapable of reconciling the entity maintaining plane activity hovering over me under the fake sun at Tracy Banks' apartment, Unit 51 at Woodside Senior Apartments, and the feigned and unintelligent documentation of you stalking, by definition, hunkering down behind the Ontario Town Square Amphitheater while you're coming ostensibly from the same airport. This is the entity that engages in more psychopathic behavior and stalking. This is what they did while stalking upon my exit of the OVITT Family Community Library, triggered by my podcast that I documented, triggered by everything that I am publishing. The entity that is triggered by its own criminal conduct being exposed is exhibiting mental illness. Those are all the angles regarding assessing what I'm exposing regarding criminal conduct, and these are factors, indicators for those who are legitimate in the practice of medicine in order to assess outside of what is the propaganda, the abuse of the medical profession, where this entity that's engaged in eating its feces and then criminally defaming American citizens that it is keeping criminally under surveillance. That amplified noise is not even actually the sound of that plane. And I've documented the evidence of amplified audible activity, but you're just breaking all that down. The entity's doing so while it's witnessing what is literally another day of being embarrassed on the internet, and they're engaged in what is ongoing criminal activity, and it's in furtherance of murder. This airport is being shut down, and terrorists of that airport are going to prison for every kidnapping that they were monitoring with the Ontario police and the people of the state with, and I documented it. It's 5:43 p.m. P.O.C. Stalking by Mike Lorenz, the agency that's being disbanded, 6:25 p.m. That's the entity that's been stalking the entire time, while the Ontario International Airport has been maintaining psychopathic pacing above the Ontario City Hall, the Ontario Senior Center, and the 280 North Limit apartments. Doing so while I am located on the side of the OVITT Family Community Library. The entity just took its turn in engaging what is monitoring directly. That's the agency whose malice is exhibited by Jay Chu's audible activity at the Starbucks under the fake sun, where that entity is also then stalking by helicopter at that Starbucks, doing so while I'm publishing the evidence, and then they're stalking by helicopter where that fake sun remained, and at no point ever in the day is the sun at Holt and Vineyard while I'm remaining at the Ontario Town Square to the OVITT Family Community Library to the bus stop at F Street, where this entity is stalking by helicopter. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct regarding mental illness that's exhibited and shared by that agency, whose mental illness is exhibited by the malice that is clear when they're engaged in criminal summoning. J. Chu and Rodriguez are going to prison, and so are the employees at Starbucks at 111 North Vineyard Avenue. So is L. Edwards, for example, A. Quesada, and Alex Escobar. And their malice is speaking to what is mental illness. This is psychopathic conduct while they're engaged in criminal surveillance wearing police uniforms. And the entity is, again, engaged in conduct that it never anticipated would be investigated or exposed. And that's speaking to a psychopathic and bloodthirsty agency that's conspiring murder. Doing so while you're stalking me in helicopters and you're stalking me under a fake sun. Those are demons. And their mental illness is exhibited while the airport is exhibiting that mental illness. Remember, they are one entity. They are demons maintaining the elements of monitoring together. That's helicopter activity at 6:27 p.m. This is P.O.C. 6:28 p.m. Stalking by helicopter, not going anywhere. Okay. The entity is engaging what is utilizing all the resources and the money of a police department to keep me under surveillance. That's a police department that's not going to survive. And it's also a police department that's putting Mike Lorenz in prison by this pattern of conduct that they are exhibiting while they're exhibiting severe mental instability. Helicopter activity is occurring where the entity is engaged in what is plain activity. It's the same element, the criminal elements of monitoring. It is also relevant that I am on Facebook publishing evidence against this agency, and they are still engaging in what is an outdated tactic when you are being investigated in real time. Like I've stated before, and I'll state it again, they are delusional. They're going to be placed in diapers in padded rooms where they can safely eat their feces and not endanger anyone else, wearing guns on their hips, bearing badges and exercising authority under the law that they don't have while they're engaged in surveillance. These are demons that are stalking in helicopter, and they are an embarrassment to the demons that are supposed to be engaging in surveillance so elite. They're not elite at all. They're feces eaters, and they are an embarrassment. They bring shame to what is the corrupted the corrupted executive branch that's engaging in criminal surveillance outside of the consent of the American people. In fact, the people of the state are engaging in terrorism, and that is outside of what is the duties and obligations that American citizens maintain. You don't just get to be here as an American citizen and just exist. American citizens actually have a responsibility as far as the Constitution and the law and the impropriety of the government. And the people of the state are terrorists while they violate that responsibility. They exploit that Constitution in doing so, and they enable and share in that criminal surveillance system. And they're going to prison together. Okay, the people of the state are not supposed to be engaging in targeting with the government. They're supposed to be engaging in what is enforcing their rights to correct the impropriety of the government. And as the people of the state are doing that, they're in the shoes of that government. They're going to prison right along with those government actors. P.O.C. 6:30 p.m. Analysis is such that that's the stalker that is engaged in continuously stalking, while the fact of its stalking conduct is being documented and captured to enforce one's right against the government engaging in that stalking. That's an unprecedented threat by that government that is indeed engaged in stalking. And you're also listening to what is the entity stalking by the airport in concert with that police department, that ongoing criminal cooperative act that I've been documenting for a prolonged term of years. The airport's being shut down, the police department's being disbanded, Mike LORENZ is being prosecuted as a domestic terrorist, and every kidnapper of that agency is going to prison, federal prison. Okay, and while the entity is exposing its mental illness, such as you want to engage in psychopathic pacing, then you're going into the area of the prison where the entity is wearing diapers and eating their feces, which is where they all belong. Okay, but when you provide direct evidence of, oh, you're severely mentally ill. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're going into the ward area. All right, mental examinations is already built into the pattern of conduct of gang stalking. The mentally ill are engaging in this criminal pattern of conduct. And they need to be removed far from, and they will be removed far from, planes and helicopters and police departments. 6:34 p.m. P.O.C. This is audible activity. It sounds like the entity is dropping bombs, whistling of what's means of aerial surveillance amongst what is amplified audible activity, and also in the engineered light. I captured the video. I've captured the history of evidence of this entity stalk with the possible light inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, outside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where the fake sun rises and sets, where the fake moon is over, where this agency, the Ontario Police and the airport are stalking, just like they did on video at 4:02 p.m. upon my entrance and exit. That's the entity that is engaged in the same pattern of conduct while they use these smaller planes, while they use commercial planes, which are exposed as domestic enemies. Specifically, these companies, they're engaged in murder as an entity. They're engaged in surveillance. They're engaged in targeting American citizens. They pay for flights. They board these planes unaware of the fact that a demon is flying that plane, and that demon is on assignment to crash it intentionally. Okay, and the entities engaging in what is murder: American Airlines, Amazon Prime Air, UPS, Delta Airlines, the Frontier Airlines, the entity that is gang stalking, United Airlines, every airline that is at the Ontario International Airports, including Starlux, including Alaska Airlines. Every airline is an enemy of the state, and they are exposing companies that are gang stalking in the same way that Starbucks is a company gang stalking. And that's the same exact pattern of conduct. That's the entity that engages in that while they are failing at distracting from the evidence which they're demonstrating that they're stalking. The commercial airlines are enemies of this country. They are engaged in murder. And the gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport and the gang stalking airlines are the evidence of it. And it is imperative that the Ontario International Airport is shut down sooner than later. That is inherent to this public investigation. And it's exposing the domestic terrorists in this country masquerading as companies that are, in other words, in this country making money while they're engaged in state surveillance and while they're engaged in organized state crime, such as murder committed as an entity. And that's relevant to Southwest Airlines gang stalking. That's relevant to UPS gang stalking. That's relevant to Delta Airlines gang stalking. That's relevant to Amazon Prime gang stalking. That's relevant to Alaska Airlines gang stalking. That's relevant to American Airlines gang stalking. That's relevant to every airline in concert with the demons who are the people of the state who you hear aiding in what is that ongoing offense with regard to sexual violence, preceding murder as an entity, stalking with impossible light, absurdly mentally ill. All right, and this is the entity that is speaking to how imperative it is to remove them from the threat that they currently pose to this country while they fly outside of this state, while they fly into this state, while they are engaged in what is interstate commerce, and they are a threat to American citizens that are unsuspecting, okay, while they're also under surveillance, which these airline companies are engaging in. All right, it's currently 6:42 p.m. This is the entity that's engaging what is monitoring while the evidence is being captured. This is speaking to the obsession of these demons, the obsession of what are whole companies. Like they're demons that are shareholders, they're demons that are company owners, and they're obsessed with me. They're obsessed with my vagina. They're obsessively stalking me. They are so obsessed, and also they're engaging in what is conduct with the terrorist organizations such as Los Angeles Police Department, such as the Ontario Police Department, such as the Metropolitan Police Department, such as Nevada State Police, such as California Highway Patrol, and they're going to be prosecuted for this. And the terrorist organizations like the Ontario Police, who exhibit absurd, demented conduct, not different, analogous to eating one's own feces. They are being disbanded based on the obvious threat that they pose to themselves and the public, including by gang stalking with the people of the state and demons that are utilizing companies to conceal their mental illness, to conceal their criminal conduct, to conceal their violent threat that they pose to this country. And they're also engaging in that in furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder. I want to make sure that that's clear. The entity is stalking by helicopter activity at 6:44 p.m. Mike Lorenz is mentally ill, and you have witnessed the evidence of that. This is evidence that is specifically exposing his mental illness. How? This is a pattern of conduct shared by an entity, and they are demons. The tangible evidence is also letting you know that. Not only that, this is the pattern of conduct shared with regard to the behavioral pattern shared by demons that are calling themselves a police department, a pattern of conduct in the specific environment that does not change when those demons are in those police vehicles, using those helicopters, using those commercial planes, even at the Ontario Police Department itself, stalking me, because that's exactly what you're doing, where you live, where you work, and also where you're maintaining as demons a whole police department. That police department is being shut down, and it is an emergency, a public emergency. Okay, this is the entity that is stalking by helicopter right now. Mike Lorenz's mental illness, meaning how unfit he is with regard to engaging in what is gang stalking, which is deranged behavior that is shared as a pattern of conduct by that agency. And the malice with which this agency has been targeting me for years is exactly why he's going to federal prison. Okay, P.O.C., I want you to hear that helicopter activity, because those demons are going to prison. Let me go ahead and give you a reminder about who is going to federal prison while this agency's pattern of conduct remains underway. This is the unfortunate demise of the mentally ill who harm themselves with regard to what is no secret, while you're seeing them stalking in the path exactly where the Ontario airport has been, where there are no takeoffs. The entities engage in what is light activity while they have a spotlight, and they're engaging in what is light activity where my shadow surrounds myself. Nothing other than light activity amongst the demons that do that, the people of the state, where they're targeting me also at the bus stop, where your headlights are not causing multiple shadows that are projected onto the wall, where you're driving on that vehicle, driving in your vehicles under a fake sun that's also rising and setting, and that same agency is also targeting at that bus stop. Because this is what unintelligent demons do. They're feces eaters. And they are engaging in what is stalking. Remember, because of their position of stalking, they are forced to engage in what is the immediacy of their criminal activity, as opposed to what is a larger strategy of proving that they are engaged in stalking. Okay, because you're stalking, all I do is go back to that same venue where I'm capturing the fake sun, where no sunlight is ricocheting off of the people of the state's vehicle onto the any property, any location, while you are stalking again in a helicopter, proving that you're stalking through that demonic environment. They're engaging in demonic activity. You need to understand that Mike Lorenz is a demon. That's directly relevant to his mental illness. He is unfit to be in law enforcement, period. But I have more than that. I have the pattern of conduct with regard to criminal surveillance by that agency and the demons that are subject to federal prison by virtue of their malice engaged in targeting me for years. And as of 2025, because it precedes 2025. But just as a reminder, those that are going to prison while this agency is engaging in criminal activity for which the terrorist leader, a domestic enemy, not different, not less threatening, not less unwelcome with regard to terrorism, like a foreign terrorist, Osama bin Laden. Okay, and so are these domestic terrorists. B. Hook, he's going to prison. Nathan Morgan, prison. C. Torres, federal prison. L. Martinez, federal prison. A. Quesada, L. Edwards, Alex Escobar, federal prison. C. Hazelwood, Owens, federal prison. Joseph Valencia, federal prison. Vivanco, federal prison. Durham, I believe this demon's name is. I documented him on September 28th, federal prison. And so is the entity that's engaging in what is criminal summoning, like J. Chu and Rodriguez, federal prison. And the entities engage in this pattern of conduct as a matter of what is a historic body of evidence. That means Jason Knighton, back in January 13, 2020, guess where he's going? He's going to federal prison. Jonathan Burnett, May 4, 2019, guess where he's going? Him and Sequoia Payton, federal prison. Okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:48 p.m. and this is speaking to the threat where the mentally ill are stalking. That agency is stalking at the same exact location in the same exact manner as the gang stalking airport. It does not get any more idiotic than that, but these are feces eaters and they are going down a rabbit hole. Understand, they are actually mentally ill. Okay, this is the pattern of conduct, and this is what ordinary American citizens are subject to, and they don't have the evidence to prove it. This agency engaged in much more than just stalking, which I've proven. They've engaged in kidnapping me while they've been stalking outside of the bounds of authority of the Constitution. They've been engaged in stalking and targeting with the population. That's not even ever articulated or contemplated, rather, under the federal and state constitutions. They've been engaged in defaming my character. Imagine that. You're going to prison. Lorenz, you're going to federal prison while these puppets are stalking me by helicopter because you don't have any other plan to engage in your gang stalking system, which if you were not mentally ill, you would stop engaging in it because your witchcraft has failed by virtue of the P.O.C. and because you're going to prison where you're surrounded with tangible evidence, sir. You're going to prison where feces eaters like you belong. You are absurdly delusional. This is P.O.C. It's currently 6:49 p.m. This is what American citizens have a right to not be subject to. And this is establishing precedent, which is the reality of terrorism in the United States, which is shared by terrorists such as the commercial airlines. This is not a distraction. While those commercial airlines are sharing in terrorism with the gang stalking terrorist organization, the Ontario Police. In fact, it's confirmation of the ongoing stalking that they've been engaged in for hours as I've been documenting it. P.O.C. That's what the mentally ill engage in. They engage in what is serving their own demise because I'm here to prosecute and expose. It was never going to be successful against me. P.O.C. It is 6:50 p.m. These demons have been maintaining a beeline over the Ontario City Hall, the Ontario Senior Center, the Ontario 280 North Limit Apartments, the city senior apartments. These demons engage in stalking, going right back up to the north end of F Street in Euclid. Blatant stalking. That's where they're going to go next, following stalking. They're obsessed with me. And so are the companies that are filled with demons, owned by demons. Demons that own companies in this country where they're easily engaging and participating in keeping American citizens under surveillance, keeping you under surveillance and your genitalia and your children's genitalia inside of your home and everywhere that you're going under surveillance. To those that are outside of this country, maintaining companies inside of this country. And this corrupt terrorist organization is aiding in that without the consent of the American people, because the demon-possessed people of the state, they don't count. That's the state that's targeting. I am representing the American people, and I have not consented, neither have any of you. The demon-possessed people of the state, they're going to prison while they're targeting with the government, in the shoes of the government, the public entity, where there is no private property, there's no private speech, there's no freedom of speech protected. You're not engaging in any of that. You're engaging in state action, including while you speak. State speech is action, state action. Where the entity, the public entity is maintaining surveillance, that's no private property. The entity has made any and everything everywhere public property by virtue of criminal surveillance. You have nowhere to hide, Satan. You're being prosecuted, and all of that malicious conduct, such as criminal summoning at Starbucks, you're going to federal prison. You're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:51 p.m. I want you to listen to the demon-possessed feces eaters that are failing with regard to any sort of retaliation to what is already judgment and prison for their leader and every kidnapper. Because that's all they're doing. A demon, a psychopath is crossing path on a bike. This is mental illness that Mike Lorenz shares. A demon is crossing path. These are demons. They're bat poo crazy feces eaters. These demons are pacing with the entity that's flying in circles by helicopter. After they're sitting up, engaging in what is listening to me, and a psychopath that's triggered engages in more psychopathic conduct. These are serial killers that murder people. They turn on their sirens while they're manifesting as demons, drive in the middle of the road to murder people that they then act as though they did not know they were there. That's what LAPD did with regard to the skateboarder. While they're engaged in this criminal surveillance system, where those demons are monitoring your genitalia, they're engaging in murder in the same way that the Ontario Police Department is providing the evidence against the LAPD, who committed intentional, premeditated homicide. P.O.C. It's 6:52 p.m. Those are the demons that are mentally ill. You're only hurting yourself. You already lost, Satan. You're only hurting yourself. P.O.C.
Alrighty, these are demons that are pacing. They're monitoring with the Ontario International Airport and the Ontario Police. Stalking with impossible light, not different from stalking at the bus stop. They're coming from facilitating meetings where they live, exposing themselves on the federal government, to the federal government. Deportation, license 9RDG223. Deportation applies, federal prison, raids, all of the federal laws applying to the entity that's gang stalking with the government where they live. Okay, this is P.O.C. That's the entity engaged in criminal summoning. That's psychopathic pacing while he drives out and then drives around. This is the entity that's engaging with its engineer light, that's molesting while I'm on the sidewalk. In concert with the agency that's sounding sirens. This is demonic activity. Okay, this is P.O.C. License 7B21506. This is Vesta and Bonita in between Vine, where they're engaged in a sex offense. Every street that I'm on, every corner that I turn, molestation. 5XLR093, that's impossible light moving across the license plate. That's not headlight. Okay? The headlights are not going to create light that's moving across the plate like that. That's a demon, and it's also a state actor. This entity, this entire neighborhood has been documented for years targeting me, by the way. They're engaged in surveillance sitting in the dark, gang stalking. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's stalking and surveilling, including in the bathrooms, okay? Turning onto the street is a sex act. License 7ILY248 with the state that's sounding sirens. That's the mentally ill that get behind the cockpit of planes and helicopters and further into murder, exposing this entire neighborhood. Not coincidentally going where the Tesla went, pacing. P.O.C. All right, this license plate. Engaging with his criminal presence in the path. This is 544, by the way. Stalking in the path. This is demonic. License 7TLX248. And let me show you something else where they are stalking with light. Here's my shadow projected in the dark. This is light activity committed in furtherance of murder. That proof of that conspiracy is the engineer light. Raining also during the day where demons are stalking with light. This is what they're doing while they're stalking under a fake sun. This is the population that's going to be subject to massive deportation. This is the population that's going to federal prison for criminal summoning with the state, criminal summoning with the fire department, with the ambulance, and with the police. They're going to prison. This is P.O.C. Gang stalking in the neighborhood is state action. None of this is private property. And none of them are engaging in private speech either. This is the entity that has made every property a facilitating venue. It's public property, while criminal surveillance by the state and the people of the state in the shoes of that state are engaging in that. And the entity that's maliciously targeting and claiming private property rights, they're going to prison for every iteration of kidnapping and criminal summoning. They're going to federal prison. That's malice. P.O.C. It is 7:54 p.m.
All right, the following are the demons that are monitoring before I reach this venue while they're engaged in surveillance, psychopathic pacing, and the engineered light. License plate 9LAM948, 9LQF266. Gang stalking at the infamous Panda Walk.
The entity is molesting me with impossible light under the fake sun over this Chinese food restaurant where demons hop out of their cars as soon as I pull out my phone to record podcasts. I'm going to get those demons license plate. They're monitoring as I'm walking on Vesta, and these demons are pacing, the entity sounding sirens, and they're engaging the P.O.C. They're monitoring here. They're monitoring at a distance while I come here, and they're engaged in that same P.O.C. So I just want to be clear, 7JJL988. It's criminal engagement, and the pattern of conduct is documented by their co-defendants at Vesta and Bonita. 9NKR652. The demons stalking with impossible light, molesting. The demons molesting me at the intersection. The demons doing so, pacing, sitting in the dark, engaged in surveillance. They're all engaging in that as their co-defendants are being documented right now. License plate 7JTG344. EH36E48. That's paper. All right, this is an infestation of cockroaches. This is actually a dead population while they are the Nephilim, and their criminal activity is being exposed. It's actually their sickness and their creature their creature-like behavior is exposed while you're looking at and you are aware of what the actual purpose is, and it's very sick and demented. License 7HXH779, 6YOX827, 8SND907, 9SOD561, 5BYA754, 8TDP896. Remember, the sex offense, the perpetual sex offense, is identified not only by its ceaseless engagement, but by numerosity. It's terrorism. While the entity is engaged in sex offense, the sex offense of molestation, 7YPZ498, 9JTM677. Psychopathic pacing in their vehicles in the engineered light. This is the entity that's engaged in group conduct. So at the bus stop, when you're looking at impossible light moving across the wall while I'm sitting on the bench, those aren't their headlights. And in that engineered environment, these are demons who are pacing. This is group conduct. They're cockroaches scattering all around, pacing all around me like sharks in the water. All they're doing is going back and forth. That's what they're doing right now. 16101M3, EC55E43 paper, BZ99G96 paper, 8YKC940, 8XWX416, 6YOX827, 04867A4. This is all state action. This is why the Ontario International Airport is gang stalking for hours while I'm remaining at the OVITT Family Community Library. 7 Edward Igloo Uncle 727. This is why the Ontario Police is gang stalking while I'm at that same OVITT Family Community Library, notably while I'm speaking to the fact that domestic terrorists from other countries, domestic terrorists that are masquerading as companies that are merely just engaged in what is business and making money and serving the good while they're handing out food during COVID and handing out food during the government shutdown. They're demons that are keeping you under surveillance. And they're engaged in and are actually engage in what is simultaneously criminal surveillance while they want you to think 9GNY101 is a private citizen that's engaged in what is private speech, private conduct, while they're gang stalking with and through these businesses that employ the people of the state. That's what Starbucks is. 8PEG202, 9KNZ822, license. EC73T14, the entity that's driving around with these paper plates, it's relevant to the prosecution. All the ways in which the entity seeks to, any means, in other words, seeking to obstruct justice by trying to conceal your identity, it's going to be known in court, and you're going to get more time. 98387, that's a license plate, California, 7PAE846. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaged in gang stalking before I even reached this venue. So this is the entity that has already documented gang stalking, and okay, of course, I've already documented very heavily this neighborhood, this city, this particular venue, the Ontario Village Shopping Center. But understanding the entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct is doing so, their co-defendants are exposing the fact that they're gang stalking. All right, so I'm documenting them before I encounter them and get their license plates. It's currently 8:02 p.m. All right, the entity that is monitoring with the government, engaging in surveillance in the bathroom, that's speaking to knowledge, foreknowledge, before you are what is actually trying to break into the restroom, which is a threat to the targeted individual whose life is under attack by the demons that are engaged in. This is the same thing that Starbucks at 706 West Holt engaged in as well, under the fake sun with the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police, where they then engaged in also what is criminal summoning. The entity is monitoring in this bathroom, and then that entity comes and tries to break in, entering the code, knocking on the door. It's all activity creation by a stalker in the path on behalf of the state. That's the entity, and knows exactly where I'm at and what I'm doing, knows the state of my genitalia. That's a threat, and the entity is engaged in a routine documented pattern of this. That's psychopathic also. This is the entity that's engaged in conduct while all you're doing is learning of their tactics, and they are being assessed with regard to mental illness as proven gang stalkers. P.O.C, the entity trying to break into the bathroom at 8:26 p.m. at Stater Brothers. All right, this is mental illness. If it had an image, this is it. The entity is landing behind the Ontario Town Square Amphitheater. The entity is taking off as though the airport is on Lemon Avenue. The entity is maintaining this elevation in audible activity at Stater Brothers. This is the pattern of conduct. This is all stalking with light. This is what the entity is doing at this Stater Brothers that has the fake sun all day long. That's the entity that's been gang stalking for hours at the OVITT Family Community Library, which again, the entity is engaged in what is stalking where the airport is south of Hope Boulevard. The entity is deviating to be over the parking lot. The entity is engaged in what is a far cry with regard to deviation by flying over Woodside Senior Apartments and flying south over my hotel room at Economy Inn, flying over my head at the sidewalk of Euclid Avenue at the 60 freeway. The entity is engaged in what is the picture of mental illness, okay? While the demons are breaking into the bathroom, while they're engaged in surveillance, they're going to be prosecuted for that. It's the same tactic for bathroom monitoring and harassment by Starbucks at 706 West Holt, where I'm documenting the fake sunset on June 3rd, 2025, which is never in alignment with my face inside of the OVITT Family Community Library. And where the sun would not be rising at the OVITT Family Community Library or at the bus stop at Bethel Congregation and setting through the window of the Starbucks at 706 West Holt. This is the P.O.C. These are demons that are exceedingly hostile while they engage in that pattern of conduct. The entities engaged in this as a family of demons are gang stalking. This is mental illness by the demon-possessed people of the state. And you're going to happily deport the terrorists that are in this country gang stalking, even if they are engaged in the pattern of conduct as natural-born citizens. Their grandmas, their grandpas, their aunties and uncles, the entire family is subject to what is that deportation policy. That's the entity that's engaging what is stalking with light, while they are engaging what is trying to break into the bathroom as well, while they're engaged in surveillance. Okay? That's POC. That's impunity that you're witnessing. Impunity of the gang stalking airport, 6LPL023, and that's state action. That's a molestation, all right? While the entity's touching with impossible light, creating light activity with her raggedy Camry, okay? That's the pattern of conduct, and she's doing so, the government is doing so with minors. The contribution to the delinquency of minors who are acting in furtherance of that conspiracy to commit murder with the state, okay? Through that ongoing gang stalking conduct. This is what they're doing at ARCO, as though they're taking off, rising in elevation. Yeah, that's POC. Yeah, this is the government that's fully admitting to surveillance, and this is the picture of mental illness. This is psychopathic pacing, and this is going to go on that playlist for you to witness. This is what the Ontario Police do while they're flying in circles. This is psychopathic pacing. These are the demons that commit murder, which is what UPS committed in Kentucky. That's POC. It is currently 8:35 p.m. The Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport, the Ontario Fire Department are being shut down. POC. Okay, monitoring with the Ontario International Airport, that's the state, is Starbucks, that's in relevant position. El Pollo Loco, that's in relevant position. The Ontario Village Shopping Center is monitoring. And the store manager, David Quinones of Stater Brothers, and Isaiah, gang stalking while he is inside, and he's the demon that's ringing me up, gang stalking me and doing so. This is the pattern of conduct the people of the state are monitoring. License plate. They're gang stalking while the government engages in direct conduct, and they are acting vicariously. This is the mental illness shared by the demon-possessed entity, 24254J1. They're all monitoring with children as well, 9JLY672. This is built into the prosecution of the entity that's gang stalking as a corrupt society. License 7PAE846. License 9 740. License, the entity just literally just engaged in what is 9 HUT 955. The gang stalking is not funny, but they're so bat poo crazy. This is sad. And the entity's looking at how it's embarrassed on the internet, and then it's like they get smacked down, and they just get, this is not getting up. This is not tantamount to getting up, but they get smacked down and they just keep on and keep on. This is speaking to the obsession and the delusion. Mental illness is what you're deducing from it. They literally engaged in rising up in elevation as though you're taking off from Bonita, okay? When you're acting like you're taking off on Euclid and East Street. I mean, which one? It's the same airport, 2500, 2900. This is the mentally ill, and they engage in what is psychopathic pacing, okay? The demon that is monitoring with minor children, those are the same demons breaking into the bathroom, monitoring me, knowing who I am, knowing where I'm at, knowing the state of my vagina, and is engaged in monitoring on behalf of that government that's stalking in the sky space. 6LPO023, where no planes taking off are hovering over this parking lot either. Neither is it still going to be hovering. 8XZC151, when you're hovering over the Ontario Town Square, which is east of this. So how many miles are you maintaining what is not a takeoff? You're hovering throughout the city. You're stalking where the fake sun is documented as well. You're stalking where the entity is engaged in stalking with impossible light. Remember what's inside of the Stater Brothers on the inside, where those demons are pacing in and out of the entrance, and they're engaged in what is stalking with impossible light while that entity is maintaining that pattern of conduct. With the agency, the Ontario Police license. Let me get this license plate. Let me also capture this image. P.O.C. Oopsie. 1644287. That's a Latino male, vehicle 1064C as in Charlie, with a mustache. He's going to prison. 9LSE124. This is what the demons do while they're engaged in that pattern of conduct. And they're engaged in with the Ontario Police, who are monitoring with the airport, who are monitoring with the people of the state, while they're engaged in that pattern of conduct together, while they are very much aware of who I am and where I'm at in the bathroom. Breaking in is a terrorizing threat, and it's activity creation. P.O.C. The Ontario Police are present with regard to communicating unlawful threat, which is why he's going to prison. This is the entity that's conspired my murder and gang stalking conspicuously, which is what the people of the state are doing in concert with that agency, and they're both going to prison for every iteration of criminal summoning. 9LNZ825, 19580Y1, 9CPV698, 9GSU211, 8YJ8818, and they're all stalking with the Ontario Police Department, who's engaged in conspicuous stalking by coming in the path to engage in stalking in your face. License 9DBG082, license 9UBD348, 9JPV698. The entity that engaged in criminal summoning, which is this agency that's mentally ill, they're going to be disbanded and they're going to federal prison for projecting mental illness that they suffer from. Severe mental illness. 8VUF299. P.O.C. Habit is gang stalking. DD's discount this entire shopping plaza. Remember, the entity is gang stalking under the fake sun at this shopping center while I'm at the laundry, the coin laundry, and Southwest Airlines is stalking specifically over that angle of this plaza under the fake sun that's over me at that address, at this address, during the 7 a.m. hour. That was during summer, daylight savings time. There is no accounting for what is the stalking as this entity is targeting with planes, and they engaged in that as though they're taking off. There's also no takeoffs hovering over the coin laundry in this same plaza. All right, and the entity that's engaged in what is communicating unlawful threat while I'm documenting, that demon's going to prison. Okay, and Isaiah's gang stalking with the Ontario Police, so is every other employee inside of Stater Brothers. This is P.O.C. It is currently 8:40 p.m. The entity's engaged in what is stalking at the Stater Brothers grocery store at 646 West Holt Boulevard. It's not a family market. It's a third-party terrorizing company engaging in the P.O.C. conspiring murder. A deceptive misnomer is identifying itself as family markets. It's not. Mr. Quinones is engaged in state surveillance as a manager at this facilitating venue, doing so targeting with the Ontario Police Department, maintaining surveillance inside of that grocery store in furtherance of murder, and also doing so with the Ontario International Airport, maintaining surveillance inside of that grocery store with the gang stalking patrons who are stalking inside of that grocery store. All manner of the P.O.C. is surrounding Stater Brothers and the Ontario Village Shopping Center, including the demons that follow to this plaza, as though you are taking off over Bonita. And then doing so in that video that's 3 minutes long. So that's, again, the entity that's engaged in psychopathic pacing. This is relevant to what is the national security threat, that are the demons that are engaging in what is criminal monitoring, surveillance in this country, P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, where the entity is stalking by plane, 8:41 p.m. P.O.C. This is the entity that is stalking from place to place. Alrighty, from place to place, and doing the entity that's engaging in that with the people of the state. The people of the state are subject to federal prison for targeting with the state. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently 8:42 p.m. All right, resorting to sexual violence is a hostile demon. The sex offender, this is a Latino male, facial hair, glasses, license plate. Let me get it. And this is on the Ontario Police on behalf of the demon that the agency, he represents the whole agency. This sex offender is acting as an agent, license 4 Wendy Robert Edwards 657, resorting to sexual violence while the evidence is being published onto Facebook, onto X, where the demons want to engage in psychopathic conduct, and then they're mad, trying to move it out of the public folder while I publish it, trying to obstruct the ability to access internet after I document it in order to publish it. And so this is where that molestation with engineer light, they're monitoring. And they're going to be prosecuted for the unlawful sexual touching pursuant to criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder on behalf of the government that presents evidence against them that they are stalking. Okay, that sex offender is acting on behalf of the Ontario Police, who are gang stalking as well. And in particular, that terrorist that's going to federal prison, let's recall his license plate together, because he is indeed going to federal prison. License 1644287, vehicle 1064, C as in Charlie. Doing so at 646 West Hope Boulevard, where sex offenders are stalking with impossible light. And they do so during the day and at night. They're doing so with the psychopaths that are flying miles away from the airport, hovering down as though you're taking off, rising up over the Panda Walk, and then hovering over this parking lot, and you're looking at them hovering over the 280 North Limit Apartments for hours upon my exit of the library, and while I remained at the OVITT Family Community Library, where that agency also was stalking by helicopter. These are the sex offenders that are engaged in that, and that's the P.O.C. Sex offenders are engaged in what is monitoring in the bathroom, and then psychopathic conduct, feigning a takeoff by plane, feigning ignorance about your presence in a bathroom where they're breaking in. That's the mental illness, that psychopathic conduct that is a threat to the target individual, that doesn't have evidence of being targeted, that is being forced to remain in a bubble. Where the government is conspicuously stalking them, threatening them, harassing them, kidnapping them, defaming them. This is the entity that's engaged in what is a ceaseless sex offense, keeping their genitalia under surveillance while doing so. This is the entity that's going to be totally broken apart with regard to that prosecution. The people are going to prison, and so are the gang stalking demons, the terrorists of the Ontario International Airport, providing evidence that's used for not only to study, but for the world's benefit. These are terrorists that are, sooner than later, need to be removed from the positions where they are a threat to national security. And that's why they're stalking at the Stater Brothers. P.O.C., it's 9:04 p.m. All right, that's the audible activity of gang stalkers that are engaged in stalking with light, the act of terrorism in concert as an agent of that terrorist agency, the City of Ontario, the Ontario Police Department acting in concert with the Ontario International Airport. License plate 6050364. License plate. The entity has what is inexplicable light. The entity engages in, for example, at the bus stop or on video, you can see the engineer light. While I'm there, you're looking at the vehicles driving by, you're looking at the engineer light. These are demons that are engaging when it's stalking with light. It has nothing to do with the headlights. That same light activity is occurring when there are no vehicles driving around me. Okay, that's how demonic this is. This is supernatural. These are demons that are trying to associate what it is that they're doing with regard to the environment that's surrounding, and it has nothing to do with that. These demons are engaged in surveillance with the absence of any license plates as well. That's the entity that's engaged in obstruction, and this is criminal conduct by the Ontario Police Department as well. License 24703 SAM 3. The entities engaging in stalking with light while they are doing so with those that are immigrants, those that have immigrated to this country and they're engaged in terrorism and furtherance of murdering American citizens. It's an absurdly obvious basis of deportation. Deportation of the entire family. Deportation of, well, literally, the federal government has legal jurisdiction to run through the entire. The state of California is engaged in terrorism, so they have exposed themselves in the same way that this is all public property because the entities engaged in criminal surveillance. There's no private property, and you also are not engaged in any private speech. You're not engaged in any freedom, or you don't have those rights as the government engaging in this surveillance system. The entity has made everything what is public property because the government's maintaining criminal surveillance with the people of the state, including where they live, where they work, where they're shopping. And they're only shopping because they're stalking. They're stalking. And what supersedes? Not your work schedule, because that fake sun moves as I move where you're working. That's what's superseding. You are at work to engage in stalking. Having no constitutional protection whatsoever. Be prepared to go to prison where this entity is engaged in criminal summoning. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaged in what is psychopathic behavior. I'm documenting the demon-possessed that are engaged in obstruction of justice, so I'm going to show you the terrorists that engage in that pattern of conduct with no license plates. That's the entity that is indeed engaged in surveillance and knows that they're being documented. This is the criminal conduct of the Ontario Police Department as well. These are gang members. They're not police officers. Okay, they behave and they conduct themselves like gang members, like treacherous criminals, like cockroaches, okay, that are engaging what is lurking around in the dark. And so do the cockroaches in the sky space. The entity resumes flight in the sky space while at this venue, the Stater Brothers. This is P.O.C. This is published on X. It's published on Facebook. It's published on Threads. And the video of this mentally ill behavior is going to be on YouTube as well. P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, remember, 646 West Hall, Ontario Village Shopping Center is west of the entity that is stalking with the same audible activity, meaning you have not heightened in any elevation, you're not engaging in any takeoff, and doing so while you are stalking in the path, not coincidentally, while that agency is engaging in what is stalking under all circumstances, and so is the Ontario International Airport, okay, with that agency. The demon-possessed are engaging in what is mentally ill behavior while they are stalking with light, which is their role, while they are stalking as a population, conspiring murder with those demons that call themselves a police department, fire department, ambulatories, or EMTs. Those are demons. And they pose a threat to the public. They commit murder under the guise of, oh, we lost a life. We couldn't say. They're engaged in what is this malicious pattern of conduct, and the people of the state are at risk while demons are operating ambulances, while demons are engaging in what is criminal activity using ambulances, and they're associated with gang stalking hospitals. Those are oxymorons that need to be dealt with, that shall be dealt with under federal law. Okay, the entities engaged in this conduct, and they're stalking by the airport and by the police department, and they're doing so with the gang stalking immigrants in the city of Ontario, and they're doing so, none of this is private property, in other words. The entity is engaged in surveillance, and that's how the entity is going to be stripped down with regard to this prosecution. This is P.O.C. It's 9:26 p.m. Stalking with the city of Ontario. Crossing path on behalf of that government that's keeping me under surveillance through them. 9TOG012. Appears to be a Latino male, perhaps Middle Eastern male. Olive colored skin. Dark black hair. License DF96 Larry 98. Paper plate 9SFU034. And the video that you listen to, the video that you could see on YouTube, is speaking to the fact that they are all indeed engaged in gang stalking. 7YPZ498. License 7JGS281. Excuse me, 6JGS281. In case I said 7, I think. 7THV585. 9FRP086. 9BKP470. Engaging in surveillance over here And again, I wouldn't see them, but for walking through the parking lot, they're crossing path while they're sitting at the edge of the parking lot, monitoring what the entity, the psychopath stalking in planes. License 9EDY031. And they're gang stalking with the entity that's keeping me under surveillance while they're pacing around in engineer light, molesting, stalking with impossible light, doing so with no license plate, doing so while coming straight. All those other parking spots, you'll see this psychopath come straight toward me while I'm clearly standing there. That's the entity that is monitoring, but she's clearly, there's an air of desperation around her with regard to what she's doing, and I'm referring to the Latina female that's gang stalking with all of her demon-possessed children, that's pacing while she got out of the vehicle as well, and that was an iteration of what is well, it's harassment, but it's also relevant to what is an act of desperation, what I was speaking about. I was speaking about the entity gang stalking Starbucks, the fake sun setting at that Starbucks at 706 West Hall, 8DIW637 license plate. And the entity's engaging in what is gang stalking, hovering over this Stater Brothers. And the entity's doing so while this third party then is stopping and parking right in front of me, molesting my person with engineer light. Those are the demons that are stalking with impossible light. So she's touching all over my body, and they're monitoring together right now on that inside of this whole parking lot. License plate 9RVE384 6NCA277. This is the evidence prosecuting all of them. EC60P73, I believe. That's a paper plate seeking to conceal their that license plate because it's a paper plate that looks like they sprayed water on it, so you can't see the license. It is 9LQE266. Panda Walk is inside gang stalking. That's an Asian male. And another, third party that's at the entrance as well, monitoring. 9NKR652. I read these. I'm reading them again. They're monitoring. They have been with the Ontario Police, with the Ontario International Airport, and the audible activity, the stalking, the video is prosecuting them. 6JJL988. This is the entirety of that Ontario Village Shopping Center. So is Little Caesars. So is Dee Dee's Discounts. So is Habit. So is El Pollo Loco. You already know that the entity is stalking while I'm here, and the Ontario Police are stalking by helicopter, as I documented, in concert with Amazon and in concert with the City of Ontario, as I was walking out of the El Pollo Loco a few weeks ago, where that same agency is stalking through the state actor that's using a police vehicle to engage in the P.O.C. DF96L98 engages in surveillance while that airport engages in what is stalking, communicating a threat, okay? Engaging in surveillance and then pacing, going back in the opposite direction, engineer light on that black asphalt while that demon is engaging in that. This is P.O.C. And what else is open? It's the entire shopping village. It's not limited to business hours, but these are venues where the demon possessor engaging what is, oh, I'm going to buy this. Oh, I'm filling up my gas tank. Oh, I'm going to buy coffee, and they're gang stalking. Okay, that's a federal RICO case. Okay, the P.O.C. is not limited to, however, business hours. The demon possessed are gang stalking me at the Monrovia, the Courtyard by Marriott in Monrovia, California, for example, are gang stalking by going to the Huntington shopping plaza in the middle of the night when it's closed. There's nothing open, and they're sitting in that parking lot maintaining light activity in alignment to my hotel room while the Monrovia police are stalking by helicopter, and the entity is engaging in that with regard to what is that mall area, that plaza that's closed. That plaza is being prosecuted, and nobody's forgotten about that while the entity's gang stalking in Ontario. Okay? It's the entity only that forgets these things. It is, and that's because they're mentally ill. That's proven through the stalking in planes in the first place. All right? It's currently 9:35 p.m. And if you're not sure about what I'm referring to, this is documentation in 2024 when I have traveled to Courtyard by Marriott in Monrovia, California. It's like Monrovia/Pasadena, and it's adjacent to the 210 freeway where the entity's keeping the fake sun from morning until evening, and that fake sun is over my room. This is speaking to the targeting by the City of Ontario. And every gang stalking demon, including the one in that police vehicle tonight, they're all going to prison. This is going to be a sweeping prosecution, okay? The entity is going to federal prison, and their mental illness is going to be at the forefront of their criminal cases. All right, this is currently, let me get this front plate again. The front of it is legible. Edward Charlie 60 Paul 32. That's a paper plate on a Prius, P.O.C. It's 9:36 p.m. by the All right, molestation by the obsessed demons who are stalking, license 8 Paul George 055, and the demon that is gang stalking going into the Little Caesars, which is the forum for stalking and molestation. It is license plate 8 Mary Frank Jerry 899. Little Caesars is inside of the Ontario Village Shopping Center. They're doing so while the entity is stalking by airport. The entity that is stalking by the airport that has no flights that would even be in this area is the proof that they're stalking. The entity's pattern of conduct is going to serve to prosecute all of them together, and that's going to be seen in the court case. Well, I've already laid out the theory. License 8, Wendy Charlie Thomas 167. They're engaged in what is stalking with light on behalf of, this is the people of the state's role. They're stalking in the path, they're following as a population, and they're always stalking with light, okay? They do so as a population under what is proven as a fake sun, because it's not the natural environment. And you see that same pattern at nightfall where they're engaged in what is stalking with impossible light, which is also proof that both the airport, the police are stalking while they share that pattern of conduct, and the people of the state are engaging in that ongoing role. And it's supernatural. So the fact that you have a supernatural feature regarding a pattern is speaking to what is a well beyond a reasonable doubt, and it's also to a scientific degree with regard to prosecuting the terrorists who are the people of the state. All right, it's currently 9:41 p.m. Little Caesars is indeed gang stalking while that's occurring. P.O.C. This is relevant to what is, by the way, like I stated before, at Vesta and Bonita. Those demons that are pacing in and out of those apartments and all, they're all sacrificing their shelter. Any of them accepting or receiving or relying upon government assistance. Any of them that are immigrants. The entity that's engaged in what is criminal surveillance with regard to what is going to be a criminal record. As you're engaging in with a massive prosecution of a population, it's going to touch everyone's lives in ways that it's never going to be the same with regard to engaging in terrorism with the state. This is the criminal conduct that they're engaging in on behalf of the government that's stalking in the parking lot. All right, and they are using their homes, they're using the neighborhood to engage in that. And the federal government has full jurisdiction to raid literally the entirety of the neighborhood. While the entity has opened itself up to that by engaging in the system of gang stalking. P.O.C. It's 9:42 p.m. All right, this is 537 North Euclid Avenue. The entity going out of its way to engage in stalking, not over the library, flying north, stalking as I am, north of the OVITT Family Community Library, stalking west of that entrance of that OVITT Family Community Library, where they're hovering in that same manner with that same audible activity with the demons that are stalking with impossible light, aiming light at me, targeting and conspiring murder together with the Sex Offenders Ontario Police and the Ontario International Airport. That's a psychopath and a sex offender. And they're going to federal prison for criminal summoning. These are the mentally ill. And they were gang stalking inside of the Bethel Congregation Church today. They congregate while they are equally demon possessed, engaging in what is criminal monitoring. That's where I'm documenting the entity gang stalking like this with the hypocrites, the charlatans, the unbelieving fake Christians that are demons. The unbelievers are the Nephilim, and they're engaging in the pattern of conduct inside of Bethel Congregation with the Ontario International Airport. And the entity is stalking at the OVITT Family Community Library south of this location, doing so for hours. And like I stated, they're going to stalk me by going north, maintaining a beeline here. The Ontario International Airport is south of Hope Boulevard, which is down there. This is not in alignment with the Ontario Village Center either. Neither would you be maintaining any plane activity at that elevation like I documented at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, that Stater Brothers, where you are taken off from the airport. Okay, but the entity is maintaining the same elevation in the same specific environment with that same entity. That's the mentally ill. And this is an entity that has no intentions whatsoever for avoiding federal prison. They have no intentions for not looking like they're psychopaths, for not looking like obsessed stalkers, for not looking corrupt, for not looking like they are mentally ill and the entity that's engaged in eating their own feces. They have no intention whatsoever. They are openly obsessed with me and openly stalking. And they're also fully caught and embarrassed on the internet for what the government never wanted to be exposed. And the federal government is being exposed while these intellectually impotent feces eaters, these light-slinging gargoyles, are stalking, and stalking with light, which is the hard evidence of mental illness. And it is that which is committed in furtherance of murder, okay? The entire city of Ontario is subject to deportation, prosecution, while they're engaged in surveillance on the roads and the highways. That's what's relevant regarding the airport and the police department stalking me with the demon-possessed people of the state. P.O.C. That's sexual assault and battery committed as an entity. Every license plate that I documented shares that, while the entity is engaging in what is not headlights. Stalking with light is the role of the demon-possessed that are gang stalking with that government. And they're conspiring murder together. And this is, I want to be clear, Jason Fields is going to prison, Eric Spencer, Tracy Banks, Tommy Allen Banks. I want to be clear, the demons gang stalking at Starbucks at 111 North Vineyard Avenue. That's Rodriguez and his partner. They're going to prison with regard to that agency. This is all relevant with regard to stalking with light, stalking as an airport, obsessively doing so in the face of that evidence. That's the entity that's engaged in that conduct, and they share in mental illness. This is what the fire department does, stalking with impossible light. This is what the police department does, stalking with impossible light, and they are the Nephilim.
Alrighty, the demon-possessed that are monitoring the people of the state, they are the co-conspirator to murder. These are domestic terrorists. They are engaging in criminal surveillance in the shoes of the state. They are not private citizens while they engage in that pattern of conduct. And they are also the demon-possessed. This is the Nephilim that are engaging in this state surveillance system. The entities resorting to sexual violence, literally psychopathic behavior with regard to stalking with a possible light in the first place, stalking as a population, stalking with the government that's using planes and helicopters, ambulances and fire trucks and police vehicles. But they're doing so also while they're supposed to maintain this outward demeanor like, oh, you're the last thing, I'm not thinking about you, I don't know you. Remember the gang stalking by the strangers? That's the malicious guys of the P.O.C. because they don't know you, because they don't talk to you, because they keep their back to you. Which is absolutely legally irrelevant. These are the light-slinging gargoyles. They are, again, the entity that actually eats its feces. They dig in their underwear and they pull out feces and they put it in their mouth. These are the demons that are stalking with impossible light, the people of the state, and they're engaging in their role. That's their role with regard to monitoring, and they're monitoring with regard to murder, that they are conspiring with the state. I want to be clear, this lawlessness is an unprecedented basis for martial law. So this is what the federal government is totally in need of doing with regard to the lawlessness that the demon-possessed are exhibiting and that they are engaging in furtherance of murder. And they are doing so in their own face while they are looking at their criminal activity, which is proven. And not only is it proven, it's all over the internet. And they're engaging in this conduct. This is speaking to unprecedented criminal conduct, disorder, unruly conduct, the inability with regard to the untrustworthiness and the corruption of this government and the corruption of this population, which is also entirely mentally ill. I just want to be clear, this is relevant to what is militia law, martial law. And so this is a basis for it. The entity that's engaging in terrorism with the population, the entity that is engaging in criminal surveillance with the people of the state that are in the shoes of the state, but exploiting the Constitution and seeking to pose as having the substantially similar position under the Constitution, state and federal, as a private citizen, and they're not. Neither are any of them engaged in any private conduct, private activity, constitutionally protected activity, while they're all in what is public property. Everything is public because the entity is maintaining surveillance, and this is the basis, I want to be clear, for martial law, and that's exactly what the federal government has every basis to engage in, and you're looking at the evidence that supports that. So this is an entity that's exposing its own mental illness, and the entity that's stalking me with this level of impunity, it's calling for martial law. This entity that's gang stalking by this police department and doing so while they're looking at the evidence of themselves. This isn't just some conspiracy. Everybody knows that's looking at this evidence that the Ontario police has been stalking me for years and that they're still stalking. This is calling for martial law. The people of the state that are engaging in this terrorism with that government, it's calling for martial law. Okay, this is P.O.C. The entity is resorting to sexual violence while they are hostile terrorists, while I am documenting the pattern of conduct that they're engaging in. And this is all an unprecedented basis for martial law. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:23 p.m. in the city of Ontario. Psychopathic pacing. Stalking by plane. Document the screenshot. Stalking by plane again. Psychopathic pacing. The entity's doing so not over the OVITT Family Community Library where I'm there. Now they're doing it over what is the CHEVRON. They're flying over the CHEVRON. The Ontario International Airport is not east of the OVITT Family Community Library. The Ontario Airport is not east of the CHEVRON, the Lemon Avenue. That's behind this CHEVRON. There's no takeoff or anything when you're engaging in cartwheels in the middle of the street, just like they are while they're stalking while I'm at the OVITT Family Community Library. The entity engaged in what is stalking me by flying and hovering over the parking lot of Stater Brothers. And now they're engaged in what is maintaining this ongoing beeline stalking in the path here. And as I document, this is what they're doing at 10:31 p.m. All right, at the moment that I capture that immediately, again, this is 60 seconds. There's no departures from this isn't even coming from the airport. They're flying, stalking, coming from the airport, and then hovering wherever I'm located in the city. That's how they're engaged in what is stalking me at Tracy Banks' apartment at Woodside Senior Apartments. There's no takeoffs east of Woodside Senior Apartments. There's no airport east of 408 West G Street. Okay, that's Woodside Senior Apartments and Unit 51. There is no airport property. It's south of Hull Boulevard. The entity is blatantly stalking, and this is what is calling for martial law. This is P.O.C. Martial law because the mentally ill need to be stripped of the ability to maintain this airport that's gang stalking and furtherance of murder, maintain this police department that's gang stalking and furtherance of murder, maintain these positions where they are posing a threat to the public, including the demon-possessed people of the state that are gang stalking with them, and where the people of the state are serial killers roaming free, engaging in lawlessness with it. This is all calling for martial law. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:34 p.m. where the sex offense is committed by the people of the state on behalf of that government. P.O.C. Molestation. Let me capture an image of the people of the state. All right. The light activity is speaking to the entity that's engaging in that sexual violence as a violent sex offender that's hostile to demon. It's not even their headlights. Your headlights aren't blinding the drivers that you're in front of on the road, and they're also not reaching from the Iglesia Apostolic Profetica while you're gang stalking me, where those immigrants are being deported while you're gang stalking outside of their property. Those gang stalkers congregate with regard to worshiping El Diablo while they are engaged in that pattern of conduct as the gang stalking immigrant population over here off of F Street and Euclid Avenue, where the entity is gang stalking me by the airport. Those gang stalking immigrants are being deported under all circumstances. This is the entity that's engaging in that sexual violence and that impossible light activity is speaking to their condition and their criminal conduct, and it's all speaking for what is the basis, the unprecedented basis of martial law. Okay, the entity has to be restrained, and that includes the demons that are seeking to operate as a police department, which they are not. So this is, again, martial law that is called for while the entities engage in this lawlessness. And their lawlessness is all over the internet. Remember, martial law is called for here not only because of the criminal pattern of conduct. Martial law is also called for here under circumstances where the government is monitoring the evidence that's all over the internet, and you're looking at that impunity by that entity that continuously engages in it. This is speaking to mental illness upon lawlessness, criminal conduct, where the federal government is engaged in what is being provided a basis to implement martial law. This is P.O.C. It's currently 10:36 p.m. All right, already the gang members of the Ontario Police Department are engaged in what is stalking in the path at El Pescado at G Street in Euclid. They are stalking with light activity, exhibiting mental illness in doing so. They're doing so in the specific environment. They're also doing so maliciously as gang members and also as the Nephilim who engage in a criminal pattern of conduct while they are stalking with light. That's the reality of what they're doing, and they want to be viewed as engaging in something that has anything to do with the duties, the execution of the duties of officers, and they're not. They're engaged in criminal conduct, and it's not coincidental as I refer to what is martial law, which is going to handle the gang violence of the Ontario Police Department and the gang violence of the people of the state that are engaging in this because of the Ontario Police Department, in concert with the Ontario Police Department. Not coincidentally, moments later,
the gang members are conspicuously stalking in the path with light activity. The same impossible light activity underway by the demons or the people, the same impossible light activity by the entity that's stalking with the airport. The demons just conspicuously engage in what is aligning in the path. The Nephilim are defeated. The Nephilim are mentally ill. The Nephilim are the ones that eat their feces. Okay, they want to appear mighty and powerful and authoritative by dressing up and putting on police uniforms and badges and calling themselves police officers is nothing other than the Nephilim. They're dead spirits, and they're mentally ill, and they use their police vehicles, they use the helicopters, they use everything with regard to their obsession with me. And that's because they are lower spiritual beings with which martial law is necessarily going to neutralize that threat. It's absolutely necessary with regard to the gang, which is the Ontario Police. Okay, this is an entity that's engaged in criminal activity. They're doing so with regard to surveillance of my evidence, and so they are stalking in the path with light, and I've been documenting them doing this for years, by the way. There is no emergency. They engage in criminal summoning. Criminal summoning is the criminal use of the emergency vehicles while they are actually demons who are stalking in the path with light, doing so under the fake sun during the day, doing so in engineer light, which remains at nightfall. And that's what they're doing now. It's currently 10:43 p.m. And I took images of that, and you'll see the entity that's engaged in this. This is the same agency that's heavily documented in video evidence and of stalking me as an agency. They don't have any legitimacy, and these feces eaters are going to be dealt with by martial law. All right, it is currently, again, 10:44 p.m. This is P.O.C.